Barely.
I will be right back.
No problem.
Need to figure out if they have like the Amazon thing. Get him a baby gift when he gets back.
Did you say fairly important or fairly important?
What was the first thing you said?
Okay.
Fairly important?
Oh, I said fairly with an F.
Like verily? Or like fairy
F as in
odd parents?
Frederick.
I missed everything that was said because it just sounds like dead air.
We lost on the same round.
Congrats. Does that mean you still lost?
Yes.
Does anybody play retail WoW? Where do you go if you don't know where your next quest is? Isn't there something that holds my hand and takes me there?
You go to Goldshire and then a horse takes you there?
That's...
Yeah. Alright, I did link the, I linked our
You just press M.
thingy.
All the quests are on the map.
You linked your thingy?
Oh, you're right.
Yeah. Linked.
Hello, groovy people.
Oh, hello.
Hello!
Yep.
Hello.
I just think it's me doing a voice.
Well, that's because you guys don't talk at the same time.
Go. 3, 2, 1, talk.
What?
What?
Okay.
Hi.
How
No.
did you do that, Malar?
He can throw his voice so
Special
well.
skills.
Gits, before we start the meeting, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you guys have like a baby register on Amazon or anything?
Actually, I think we do.
Talk to the missus and find out.
I'm also ignorant and don't listen. What was her name?
Meredith.
Miriam.
Miriam.
Like me.
We have a friend named Miriam that we like very much. Iris and I.
Both of our grandmothers are named Mary, so, you know, we kinda...
Oh, that's convenient.
And did you...
How come we weren't a part of the naming?
I'm very sorry.
I don't
should've-
think that's
I
how
don't
it
think
works.
it works that way.
And did you end up, did you end up going with Pronator for the middle name?
Alright, we'll have a vote tonight if we think the name is okay. If not, we will change it.
Sounds good. The birth certificate's not... It takes a second for that, so...
Yeah, there's
got
still time. Still time, okay.
Still time to change it legally. It's alright, guys. We got this.
Yeah, toxic can help.
Funny.
We're hilarious.
First name Michael, last name Fox.
It's a girl. Obviously, her name used to be Chandler.
There could be a girl's name Michael.
That's Michelle.
It's 2019.
The female version of Michael is Michelle.
The X is silent, so it's Michel Foy.
Miguel Fox.
I already told Git
So I should
my
call you
baby gift to
Michelle.
him is a free run, or I'll help him level to 60.
And my gift to him is holding him back while leveling, because I'm gonna make him be my leveling partner.
I'm so down with that.
I'm holding you back, bro.
I seriously... What the hell's up with them delaying the thing?
It's okay. It's just a delay in the stress. It's no big. No big.
Won't talk about that when we get there.
They made a blue post like right before raid, and Pronator's like, no, now I have to reformat my entire presentation.
Pro, slide 8, what's with...
So what? Are you 8 slides ahead already?
Why do you have a slide A?
Typical.
A?
Is it a Canadian
Hey.
slide?
Slide A, eh?
That's slide 8.
I'm glad
You
we're
have
back to
AAA,
this, though.
right?
It's really hard to do meetings without slideshows now.
Yeah. right? We should just do raiding like this. Can we raid?
Just
This
Like
is-
slideshow
pictures
rating.
of the molten core bosses.
I
Yeah.
think we're doing it too tame. We should
At
have full
various
pop-up
levels of
books
health.
crafted for every guild meeting.
Pop-up books.
Bro, get to making those pop-up.
It was gonna be a regular book, but we want to be able to make sure people can follow along. So we got sure there were pop-up books.
Dude, pop-up
Yeah, I
books
mean,
are awesome.
we got Malar here. He needs
Oh.
the extra.
We need the
Visuals.
excitement. Exactly, we need the visuals.
Yeah, I'll get distracted otherwise.
Yeah, we need to keep you guys enticed with pop-ups.
And
So
yeah, and candy. I mean,
I know what I'm watching on YouTube now.
can we make the pop-up books lickable?
It's scratch and snip pop-up books.
Have you talked in the last like 30 seconds? Who's so quiet that I can't hear?
Probably me.
It's not Malar.
There's Malar. There's
Usually
me.
it's me.
Me, I'm in my car.
Oh,
There's
it's
Ran-
Randy.
It's Randy, but that's
It's
because he's
Randy
talking
on
into
the
his like.
Got it.
I think he's talking outside of his vehicle.
I think he's on
The
a
phone
plane
is on
still.
the roof.
No, he's on the roof. The
Oh.
phone is on the inside.
He's on a plane.
He's not on a plane, bro.
He's
That was
coming back
gas
out.
in
my car. I'm almost home.
See, that's better.
That's much.
So while
He put his
Ran-
head back inside the vehicle.
while Randy was out here, we were watching this movie at like 8:30 at night, and next thing I know, he starts
It's a little late for
snoring
you, Pronator.
really loud.
Yeah,
So-
because your house is 66 degrees.
So
You fell
I-
into hibernation.
So I got out the old camera and I videotaped him while sleeping. So is that creepy?
It's yes.
Oh, not if
Just
you
a little
post
bit
it
if
on the
you
guild
watch
It's
it.
also
website.
even
If you watch
creepier if
it
he's
back
just.
and you know.
Is he just finding out about this now? Because that's creepier.
Sorry,
You know-
Randy.
There's a pop-up book of phobias.
Oh,
of
pleasant.
phobias.
Pop-up-a-phobia?
What if you have a phobia of a pop-up book? Would that be in there?
Then you'll die.
What? Is that how that works?
Oh my god, is that a pop-up book? I gotta get out of here.
I'm pretty sure phobias are much more worrisome if that's the outcome. If you're scared of the thing and you die from it,
That's frightening.
that's pretty fucked up. Like I'm scared of spiders, all of a sudden every spider's deadly.
No,
Phobias are pretty real.
no, Mike. The spiders die, not you.
Oh,
If you're scared
that's
of
how it
them,
works.
they die?
I'm not sure that's how that works, bro.
Okay, I'm on slide 1.
Well, I mean, if you're scared of them, you squash them usually.
We're
so
11 minutes
they do
late.
die.
no, we're making sure more
That's
people.
actually false, Malar.
Okay.
If you're scared of them, you usually do the spider dance and then you
We're
run
hoping
away.
that you scared more of them
Well, that
into
sounds
showing
like
up.
Luffy.
No, that's next
There's
meeting
a
that they have
spider.
to.
Right.
There's
What?
a
No,
moth.
yeah, well, moths are the devil, okay?
Kill the
But
moth.
spiders, I don't let him kill spiders.
Unless they reach a
Spiders
certain
are the
size.
devil.
Yes, there's a size limit. Yeah, there's-
There are people who
So is the
aren't
size limit.
in Discord
Yes.
though, so we need to figure out how to get in contact with everyone.
Why are they in Discord right now if we're having the meeting in TeamSpeak?
We need to see our updates.
Why hasn't the meeting started yet?
Let's see if we get more people on there.
Wow, that's really.
The main topic of tonight is loot. So
Yeah. Okay, so let's jump right into the presentation, just so we can keep it going quick. Slide
Alright,
1
I'm on
is.
slide 8.
All right, slide 2 is our itinerary. We'll just talk about real quick. Most of our time will be bullet point 7.
whoa, what? Slow down.
Bullet point 7, the loot discussion. Most of the time tonight.
Let's
And-
go
Are we on
with
slide
6.
2?
Yes.
Oh man, I missed it.
1, 2,
Slide 2.
3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, 7. So next meeting, July
Okay.
31st.
No, you can't count. Oh, I can't count.
You can't. Loot discussion.
I counted it out
bullet point
loud
6.
for everyone.
Yeah, and I followed along and
Can
I
you
still
number
failed.
them instead of points next time?
Okay. Yeah, we'll just quickly go through the
On
first
list of
5.
People who will be joining my classroom next year.
Right. All right, on to the next slide. Just a real quick recap. Classic launches August 26th.
Is Randy running TeamSpeak from his phone right now?
It's not in 81 days like it says.
I'm on my computer. I'm trying to close the one on my phone. It's like broken.
What is it at? You got a month plus
40 something.
9 days.
Lagging.
40 something.
No.
6 weeks.
Like 40 something days. And again, you can create your characters / names. We're kind of thinking the full character model plus name plus realm.
The exact wording is character creation.
Yeah.
So.
And that probably is tied to the realm and everything. So.
Information yet?
They'll probably release that at the beginning of August, I would imagine. Probably like at least a week out. The creation time. And yeah, if you don't have an active subscription before August 12th, I would highly suggest getting that going so you can actually save some character names. Okay, on to the next slide, the schedule. Most of you know, basically, as of 2 weeks from now, the 31st, we're doing our meeting, and then from there on, we're going to start doing weekly meetings until launch day. And then probably like that weekend of before the launch, we'll probably just kind of chill every day.
I don't know if Carissa and I are going to make the next meeting.
Be drunk?
Well, I mean, it's our birthday eve, so...
Who the fuck cares about Eve?
Hello?
I concur.
We have to prepare for birthday month, okay?
Month? Nice.
I mean, come on, our birth month?
Birthday, because it's 2 weeks after our birthday.
Oh man, it's gonna suck even worse for him
I'm pretty sure I rated on my birthday.
My birthday's in 10 days. I expect
rated on my birthday
many
several times.
presents from all of you.
I'll send you some gold in North Dale.
Sure. I'll take everything.
You hear that? He'll take care of you guys. Such a good man. Alright, continue, Mr. Rowe.
Okay, moving on. So we wanted to go over like just real quickly what was fixed in the beta. If you see something that sticks out, just call it out. But there's a couple that were in from the very get-go that they fixed over time. If you haven't been following, there's a lot of issues that came up over the last, since May to 2 months, and the beta is now officially closed. And they fixed a whole lot of things, including...
I like the wetlands missing strip of water is now added.
My favorite one.
Yeah. A lot of the general ones aren't really huge, but it is obvious that they're going into the nitty gritty and the details. They want to make sure fixing even the smallest things.
The flight paths now have correct pathing and flight patterns, little things like that. It's a big, along with obviously all the character fixes and stuff that's super important, but little things like that really make it feel right.
Yeah. Okay, and next slide is follow up, more stuff. The 5 distance cap per hour.
The gnome racial has a chance to fail?
It's bullshit.
I didn't think it ever had a chance.
Well, it did.
Huh.
But under specific examples, i.e. rogues with vile poisons, which probably makes poison resist or some shit, or you poisons have a chance to be not resisted.
That's a good one. The option to request an invite to a group has been removed.
Yeah, that got removed
probably a month ago now.
Maybe that long, yeah. The beta's only out for like 50 something days or 60 days.
Invite my friend, invite my friend, invite my friend, invite my friend.
You don't have any friend.
Hey.
Okay, and then the next one is a list of basically these guys that put together all these class-specific things that got fixed over the course of the beta. They had the help of a lot of people to come up with a good list. One thing you'll notice is Hunters has a whole slide of its own, and then every other class is all on the slide. So a lot of Hunter issues. They fixed a lot of things recently too.
They seem to always have a problem with hunters in vanilla.
Yeah,
it's fix any mage issues.
It's kind of funny looking back. All the private servers had Hunters so out of whack, and now it makes perfect sense. Like, just wacky, I guess. Wacky.
They need very
Well, if you've ever watched any of the
assistance.
videos, they were the last class added.
Which one?
Hunter.
Yeah. Well, they had a lot of problems in pretty much the last 2 expansions, and it's nice that they've at least gone through the effort in fixing it for Classic as best they can. But
I
think
watched
that was the problem with their 8.0.2 or whatever client they had, because it came with a lot of new Hunter issues.
I watched Joanna the last couple days of the beta, and just watching him play, there wasn't anything like glaringly obvious.
Apart from his gameplay.
The pet,
Sorry.
the pet pathing still looked a little weird, like where like the pet would get to the mob and then it would turn, like it would follow. I don't know. I guess it was like it's different than we were used to seeing on private servers, which is a good thing. But you can bet that they're still going to work on that, and that might be like the Hunter specifically might be the one class that they still are fixing as we go live. But it would probably be just little things, the critical things.
Or at least it'd be something they're actively working on, as opposed to like the private servers where they're just like, yeah, we just can't fix this. We just can't do it.
So even I guess even like realistically, by the time we're 60, I would think almost all of it would be ironed out pretty smooth, good.
Whichever coder was able to fix a majority of the Hunter issues probably sealed the deal for their job for years to come.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm sure it's like they change one thing and it breaks something else. They probably have to do a whole lot of like manual stuff to fix it.
They ever figured out how to make the base backpack bigger than 16?
They made it 18.
Isn't it bigger in
or 20
retail?
a couple years ago. Yeah,
Yeah,
you can upgrade
your main
it.
backpack is 20.
I
Only if
remember
you
for the longest
click your
time they
button.
were like, it's the first code we ever put in the game, you can't change it.
That's kind of neat if that was a thing.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was,
it
but
wasn't literally that, but they were just like, it's hard to change apparently.
well, there's a lot of things that are hard coded, like to the number of slots. So you might have a lot of like loops and stuff that go from 1 to 16 or 0 to 15.
Yeah.
So they
I
had to
don't know anything
update
about
all
coding.
that crap.
In cooking terms, it's probably like, hey, uncook this, and you're like, can't.
Buffer overflow.
Is that why Pro sounds like he's lagging?
I'm not lagging.
Oh, I noticed it.
Oh, I'm
Look
streaming.
at
Nimpy
Yeah.
noticed it.
Well, I just won't talk. It's fine. Okay.
Okay, Michael Fox, go.
No, I have lots to say.
All right, let's go on to the other classes. Nothing, because you can see there's some classes like mages and druids that just don't have anything.
It's bullshit.
So that means Yeah. And if you didn't get a chance to test out the class that you want and stuff like we saw some weird stuff, there's probably a little getting used to with the spell leeway and with spell batching and healing
Melee leeway.
be a little
It's all
strange
clunky.
feeling. But
Some of the healing feels clunky, but it's accurate.
I think after we do it for like a day, you probably will start to just not even notice it at all.
I think a lot of us as healers, relied a lot on the healing add-ons like Luna and Grid, and didn't really focus so much on the actual lag of healing and using mouse overs, of course, like having somebody targeted and healing and the heal not registering on their target right away. For your end, it's a visual bug. It's gonna feel clunky, but with mouse overs and something like Grid or Luna, I don't think most of us will really notice it a whole lot.
Right.
Dibs on leeway is an option.
Yeah, because usually you're not like actually looking at the person, looking for your heal to make an animation on the target.
Yeah, another nice thing too is like Verdi was saying, like it seems to be a visual bug, and like the add-on should fix that. Like just from the server side, like I'm playing on an Oceanic server right now on retail. I have 235 ping, and this is cleaner and smoother than private servers is at almost 100 higher ping than I played with. So like their servers themselves are really nice. We'll notice that with any of our pings more so than anything clunky. If anything, we're going to notice our stuff is much more faster. It might even feel the same as private servers when we actually get down to it. You don't have that true delay.
I would also urge people like Baz who were considering playing certain classes versus other classes on specific ping to, during the stress test, play the class that they were intending to play originally and seeing how, like, for instance, Druid shifting feels to what kind of ping is had on those servers.
I did that, and I swapped to Priest.
Okay. I was just making sure. I just don't want...
I'm avoiding melee. But Priest feels alright.
It's good. Okay, let's move on to latest blue posts. On the left, it just shows just recently they pushed out the stress test from next week. I think it was next Thursday, Friday, so now it's TBD GMT +1.
The most important thing is it hasn't affected the release date though.
Yeah, and that if it does, that's gonna really, really, really suck. A lot of us.
Yeah, it is.
I can't see them saying 30 something. Well, as of right now, 39 days away from classic release. I can't see them confirming right there that it's not being affected, and then them in a couple weeks being like, "Oh, it is affected."
Yeah.
They'll probably just release it with whatever bugs and fix whatever.
Yeah, I hope so.
Their biggest
That would be
concern
very
is because they're talking
classic-like.
about their global release, so they're trying to do like the layers as if it was a real launch day. So maybe that's what they're not sure about yet. Maybe they haven't quite worked out how they want to have layers work. Because it's been garbage so far on the stress servers.
Yeah, it's been
And not in
buggy.
the way I thought it would be. I really thought it would be too many players, and it like for 1 to 5, sure, that's really healthy and really dense. After that point, it's dead, and it feels really dead. But you know, that might just be what Classic is if it's 3,000 players, but they don't seem to fill their layers. They allow the layers to droop down to ridiculous amounts while still keeping other layers running without consolidating the realms down to one layer. So if that doesn't get fixed, it's going to really cause
I mean, that's been
an
something
issue.
that's been up in the air since the beta server began. So
Yeah, but they haven't done anything about it. So.
Well,
Well,
the stress test would be a little different.
to do some things about it.
They've done nothing about that at all.
Like,
I know about the consolidating. The way
thinking
you
about-
switch
They have
layers.
7, like they had up until beta closed, they had 6 running layers with 500 players.
But also, let's say we're on our server. You're not going to have 1,000 people log in and then log out, you know, and then I guess it would be kind of like a steady like stream, and then you'd hit your peak, and then it'd be a steady downfall. Like, but the stress test is like spike up to a point, and then maybe people play it for 20 minutes and go, okay, this is good, whatever, and log out.
Well, the biggest problem right now with the layers is the fact that they have a home server, so it's fine and dandy for the first couple of days when a lot of people are playing a lot, and you're going to have that original 3,000 people that logged in at the very start, because what happens is you get 3,000 people, you get your own layer, and then when the next 3,000 people get their own layer, but when somebody else joins the game, like say my layer has 3,000 people in it, they've spawned the second layer, and then 100 people drop out of my layer, they don't get the next 100 players that get filled in my layer, the next 100 people are still going to go into a new layer and completely forget the other layers as if they were just like, they've been full, okay, we move on, as opposed to actively refilling the layers. So when someone has a home server, you log out in that first layer, you log back in, you're back in that original layer, which now has half the people that were logged on that day, but they're not refilling it or condensing layers. So that might have been just for the beta and stuff, and they might fix that, but if they keep that after the first week, your game's going to feel dead, and the servers may still have 6,000-7,000 players on it, but because you're in the first original layer, now only 1,000 of those original players are still actively playing. They're not refilling it. You're doing your whole entire content with 1,000 people. It's not. It doesn't feel right.
Yeah, and there's other issues like what happens if like your server has like 3,200 on average, and you could always be in that layer with 200 people, and you would have such a huge advantage.
Yeah,
but
advantage or feel like disadvantage depending on how you're playing.
Yeah.
It's an advantage for farming and all that kind of stuff, but a disadvantage if you're trying to, community or actually want to feel the game. And because when I did the stress test, the very first area, Northshire, was insane, absolutely insane. I would almost say too many people, but it was still a lot of fun. And then Goldshire was like semi-filled, like pretty decent. After that, it was ghost town. Literally didn't see a single soul after that point.
Right. And a little bit of that might have been people like only getting to 5 or something, and then like trying
they were in the zones though. No, because you could slash Westfall and it would show everyone in the zone, but they wouldn't be in my layer.
Right. Yeah, and that's one of the that's where like having your zone, everyone in the zone together might be good, but then you don't want whatever it was called before layering.
They just don't want sharding, but all they have to do is just make sure they refill the layers. Just don't allow the layer system to overdo it, and just have a layer cap. Be like, this server can only hold 3 layers maximum, and then after that point, they just don't keep adding it. But for instance, Tips Out video, he was talking about they theoretically could just have a server with 20 layers if people just keep wanting to go to that server, and that just sounds stupid. Like, they really need to make it so that it's a maximum amount of layers on the server, and they're actively closing layers and refilling layers when the player population is dipping and increasing. But there's just no phasing. Like, when you first log into the game, you're in that layer, and then you play, and you don't phase between zone to zone to zone. But when you log back out, you don't just get saved that layer. You come back in and you come onto the new layer, whatever, the least populated or most populated, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. We'll see what they end up doing. But I think that kind of sucks if they leave it the way it is.
Yeah. Well, they are creative. Hopefully come up with something good. Certainly, there's a lot of potential problems.
Yeah, overall, though, they've done an incredible job, so the game will still be great. And that's only phase 1. They'll only ruin, 1/6 of the game, so whatever.
Yeah. And, while we love the leveling portion and that fresh server start, most of us really love the raid scene as well, the dungeon gearing and stuff. 60.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go on to final thing, which is going to take the most time. Let's see any questions.
How do you like your coffee?
Black.
With peanut butter.
White.
He likes to put that hazelnut stuff in it.
He likes it white?
With breast milk.
Oh, fresh.
I got plenty of that.
Whoa!
Ooh.
Have you tried it?
You can tell us.
No comment.
So that means yes. No means no, and no comment always means yes.
Means yes, but I'm embarrassed. I don't want you to know.
Alright, so what are we looking at right now? This is...
What are we looking at?
This is a list of MC, Oni, and do you want to do Black and Layer as well?
Prompt, yeah, if you guys didn't hear the prompt, he linked another thing for you guys, I think. Yes, he did.
Yes.
So if you open up this new Google Docs spreadsheet, and then if you go to the to go over priority list, this is a list of all the items in basically the game, and then we have them consolidated to certain lists so that we can kind of sort quicker. Not everyone's going to have access to do stuff here, but we'll systematically go through. So what we've done is we've gone through the items already and kind of had a chat about it, and now we want other people to have input and say, and so everyone can kind of feel good about the loot decisions, because this is going to be very important for the loot council to have this stuff worked out ahead of time. And the main goal here is to try and get as many items that have multiple classes on them down to one class. So if we can work out a way to say that this item is better for this class because of this item later on going to this class, and make concessions or make some sort of agreements amongst classes that this works, and we can get agreements. Obviously it's not going to work for every item, that's not the goal, but the goal is for any items that can work for it to work it out. And then that way what happens is any item that is a specific class, so if it's druid only, then we don't need to loot cancel it. There's a 2-hour window on items. Basically when the item drops, if it's a druid specific item, the item will just be looted to the druid class leader right off the hop, and then they will talk it amongst their own loot council, however they've designed their loot system, and they'll divvy it that way. So it's not being dealt through with the rest of the group. The loot council doesn't need to talk about it. It's just going to be done throughout their class, and they can work out their own loot.
I might have you loot those items to Big Boy so that I don't accidentally disenchant something I'm not supposed to disenchant.
Okay, well, yeah, we'll obviously pick people that are paying attention and aren't doing things like that, but regardless, we'll make sure the items are basically just given to the class representative of their class for all the items, but everything else that is multiple classes that we can't work out, they will be done through the loot council, and then that way that we basically have much less items to have to deal with. But our loot itself...
Yeah, like he was saying. Ideally, though, we should know ahead of time for a lot of the class stuff, so it's just a matter of handing it to the right person. But that 2-hour window is very nice.
Yes. But yeah, so the 2-hour window we're going to use to our advantage, so though the loot will feel like it's going out pretty quick, it's not actually being handed out as in like that's the decided piece. It's just going to go to the loot. Either the loot council person that we have handling just holding the loot while we can continue on with the raid, and then they have a 2-hour window to either work out or discuss the piece. If it's that big of an item, most likely the piece will already know where its destination is going to ahead of time, and it's just going to get passed through, and it's not going to be a big deal. But anyways, yeah, so tonight's main thing is going over these pieces and having discussions. We've already highlighted red, so you can see there's lots of pieces. We're not going to be talking about everything, because lots of things don't need a big discussion. Lots of things are very straightforward or not that good. So the items that are highlighted red are the pieces that we're going to be discussing. And then, yeah, anybody that has any input, by all means, please give your input. But yeah, anybody that wants to give input, by all means, please do so. I don't know why thing stops cutting out.
Yeah, it's weird. So this is first filtered by two-hand weapons. So we got Earthshaker is the first one. It's just kind of question mark. I don't think this was ever really PvE focused. Plus, two-hander for melee doesn't really count so much for the alliance side, I don't think. Might be someone that wants to try it, but you're probably be inferior.
I think GSO said last night that like Dowrins was better than most, if not all, two hands. Like maybe Bone Reavers might be better.
Could end up being like a paladin farming weapon.
I think we might have overlooked these pieces. Like these ones aren't really ones we need to talk about.
Yeah, but like that, I guess OEB could be like a tank that maybe something. But yeah, Bone Reavers is the real question.
Yeah, he said we'd have to test it, but I don't know what the fuck is going on with my fucking mic. But
OEB's still a solid two-hand. It's just got lower top end.
Yeah. But if the proc rate on Bone Reavers is good, like 2100 armor is a pretty big amount.
Yeah, it's gonna be the 1.12 proc too. So.
yeah, he's still thinking though that 2 one-handers are still gonna work out better. But
yeah. But either way, like even if it was really close, and it's like, well, you should still have Delrens, and like by that point, we should hopefully all have Delrens for melee. So it's not really something to get your panties in a bundle. There is one, because we didn't talk about Staff of the Shadow Flame.
well, I think that's gonna come down to is that between just the two classes?
Yeah, it's really just. I mean, that's kind of good for both.
I don't think that's going to be one that we can really talk out of being not a warlock or a mage thing. I think that's going to have to be a loot council, but I can't see that being argued out of.
If you want to talk about AQ, the AQ staff from the armaments is less spell damage, but it's got 2 hit and 1 crit, and warlocks may want that over Shadow Flame. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, it's still a question mark.
Do we have any warlocks in here?
Well, AQ doesn't come out for quite a while, so that's my thoughts on that.
Oh yeah, but you would be able to get like Azure Song Mage Blade still, or like Chromag Claw in the meantime, just not the very best weapon, and then Mage wouldn't have any upgrades in AQ except for maybe anyone who didn't have Shadow Flame getting the Femur.
Yeah.
And then Warlocks having pure priority on the AQ staff, whereas the Femur would still be equal to anyone who didn't have a Shadow Flame staff specifically.
Yeah, plus the Shadow Flame staff is pretty rare too, so.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing too. The really important thing to look at is not just rarity of a drop, but also look at other availability of other things, but also realize that we have
AQ's, like he said, so long away that you may as well keep it equal.
Right, we can look at it that way, but if we're able to find out, like if a warlock is going to want to take a 1 crit 2 hit item later, if it means that they're going to want to downgrade from Staff of Shadow Flame, but if you're saying that it would be either or, then it's, there's no debate.
That staff specifically is much easier to get because it's dropping from a token, whereas the Femur and Staff of the Shadow Flame are both rare drops.
Right, because we know what loot's coming. It's not like a regular game. Like, yes, some things are further out, but like when we get to a couple pieces later, you're going to see that we have thought of long term with some stuff, and that's really how people should think too. Is I get obviously AQ is a distance out, but it's not that big of a distance out from Blackwing Lair. So realistically, like, just kind of think about the end game too as well. Not so much into Nax, but mostly the AQ pieces. What pieces you might prefer to get later? Because if you say you really want that piece, but you took the Staff of the Shadow Flame, you're not going to get that other staff. So if you really wanted it, like, kind of thing, just kind of think of future with your pieces as well.
I would personally, I'd be concerned with any loot before Cthulhu.
As a warlock, I'd rather prioritize the trinket over the staff any day, obviously.
Yeah. Which we'll talk about, definitely. But that's...
And the trinket will probably be going to multiple warlocks before mages anyway, as long as the warlocks aren't like drooling from the mouth or whatever.
Where do you drool from?
What? I don't know. As long as they're not terrible players, there's no reason that warlocks wouldn't be getting the hit trinket first.
Neat.
Okay, so is there any other pieces here? We had the one staff that I was gonna talk about if this is something that the staff of dominance. I know most people are probably gonna want to go for the mage blade, but would this be something that we'd be able to work in at all, or is this gonna always just be a mage lock?
I mean, they're both really mage lock. But like I said, the real difference between the two is if you want the stats versus if you want more spell damage, and you would want the stats if you're getting ready for PvP in Phase 2.
Real quick, the meeting can officially begin, or let me get that honor.
Just in time, there's here a link there.
Just in time.
But I mean, there's no reason to prioritize either class on.
Are you still living in a dungeon?
Am I still what?
Okay, well, we'll have to figure out, like, for those two pieces, we'll have to figure out some sort of system, like, if one mage blade goes off one way, like, if we can try and work out a system on that, or get a prio, or get some sort of list of people that would be okay with taking that as a piece kind of thing.
Just give all the warlocks sorceress daggers.
Yeah.
Hypnotic blades.
No.
I say we go with whatever.
That's fine. We can
Michael
do that for now.
Says.
Yeah, like I don't think there's. You could do it your way, like you said. If whoever gets the first one, it goes back and forth.
Well, yeah. If that's what the warlocks and the mages
kind of
are
the
fine
same.
with, but
It's kind of the same thing as one-handed swords. Like one-handed swords and caster weapons are kind of the biggest items of contention.
Because we had with the mage blade that you needed to have the offhand already. What offhand would we be referring to that you need to have?
The Ungoro quest offhand or the Sunken Temple offhand.
Okay, so realistically, they all.
And then when
do
AV
offhand
comes
with it.
out, that offhand.
So this, and I don't want to feel like it's a forced loot piece to somebody, even though it's a great piece. The stats on it are great. The spell damage is the same, the crit's the
Listen,
same.
you mages, you're gonna take it.
We
okay?
also have a chance to get the the Azurgos weapon, which is pretty much another mage blade. That's just a chance, so it's...
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, well, that's what we'll talk about that later then. I know we're going to have a list of basically people's preferences. We're going to give them the ability to say, like, hey, these are like the 3 pieces that I really want to get. We may make it based off instance or overall, but I think it's probably going to be overall, but like these 3 pieces, and then give every other piece as sort of a weight to how much you want. I think this will be one of the ones we have on there. If you would be okay with taking it kind of thing, or if you really want to hold out, because if people want to hold out, like we're not want to force loot onto people, but at the same time we're not going to not give loot, like, and unfortunately that might mean that somebody might get something they didn't necessarily super want, but it's still an upgrade to them, and if that's the way it has to go,
Somebody's got to take that first sorceress dagger.
I don't necessarily mean that, like, unless it's an actual upgrade. I can't see how that'd be an upgrade.
It's a 6 spell damage upgrade from pre-base.
So can we go back to the Bill Brasky bid by 1 DKP?
No. Okay, so other than that, is there anything that anyone else sees on this list that stands out to them that they would like to talk about or discuss?
It's just 2-handers so far, so we can...
Shaman get prio and stuff?
Can shamans get prio and stuff? Absolutely. I think shamans get prio on everything.
Oh, we're going back to rolling a horde? You guys wisened up? Oh, man.
Yeah.
Good old one-handers.
Okay, so if no one has anything in this list, okay, let's move on to the next.
I object.
Just do all the biggest items first. One-handers, trinkets.
Wait, Malar, are you rolling a hunter this time?
Yeah.
Oh god.
And a mage.
I haven't signed in, Pro, if you want to search the inventory tab.
I'm gonna run 2 accounts. Or at least level up both at the same time.
Pro, are you there?
Yep.
Alright. You got ranged. 2.
Let's take my
Do
ranged.
you mine at the same time, Malor?
Sure, I'll do the whole guilds. Just $40.
Okay. So this is the one-handers.
No, I'll pay for my account.
This one had the most obvious debate and the most talk because Nightblade, you're here. Dwops, are you here?
What?
Dwops.
Nice. Muted.
Yeah, I just don't know if he's here. Just poke me and say yes.
Yeah.
You're there? Okay.
He walks.
Okay. OSGSO is here too because these are the main piece because it mostly conflicts with the rogues and warriors because all rogues and warriors are all going to want to use one-handed swords for the most part. I'm sure there's going to be maybe a rogue wants to go daggers, but I can't speak for them, so I don't really know how that's going to work out for them. I don't know if their class leader is going to force a person to go daggers just for loot or something. I'm not too sure. That'll be up to them to make that call. But as it stands right now, we have Maladath, Vishkag, Brutality Blade, and CTS that we were talking about. We were also talking about the AQR, but mostly we were talking about those 4 because that's what's most prevalent at the start, along with Delrens being obviously the criteria of what you need to have going into him. So we have it in red, what we've talked about, kind of what we were thinking. There's no way to get around Brutality Blade and Vishkag being basically rogue and warrior. There's no way around it. Both people benefit from it. So that's not really what's being debated. What is being debated as Maladath being warrior prio because of rogues not necessarily needing the weapon skill, and then rogues being prioed on. It's not on this list. Can you add Solgar up to this?
Because weapon skill actually matters now. It's not
So
an
the
oversight.
ZG has there's the Warblade of Hikari, and we would have that prioed to rogues. So the one nice thing about that is you can do ZGs in 20 mans, so there's more opportunities, and it's an earlier lockout, so actually obtaining that weapon will be probably easier than the Maladath. And then the CTS would be Rogue Warrior again, but then it would come down to basically, do you have Fishkag? Do you have Brutality Blade? Yes, then you're probably not going to get that upgrade over somebody that may not have it yet, provided everyone is performing at the same level. Like if there's somebody that is garbage, and they don't have weapons, they're probably not going to receive it just because their numbers are low, unless it's just a mild difference. But basically, they need to be competing and blah blah blah. As long as everyone is putting in the same effort, then if somebody has a CTS, if somebody has a Vishkag in their main hand and somebody doesn't, somebody's still rocking their Delrens, or somebody's still rocking, whatever they had to take, some axe or something because they couldn't have that, they'll be getting prioed over the person with the Vishkag for the CTS first. Same thing is with the AQR. If you're wanting to get that, there's no way you're taking the CTS and then saying when the AQR comes out that they want to get prioed on that first as well, because that's just dumb. So if play smart and things like that. But the main debate that we wanted them to look at are the rogues to talk about, because we didn't have any rogues. Actually, we did have Terry for a little bit in our discussion, but not a lot. But we would like a rogues input on the Maladath being warrior prioed and their weapons skill, if we're understanding it correctly.
Yeah, or Maladath should be warrior pro.
Great. And then you guys agree that you guys should be prioed on the Warblade in ZG.
Yeah, the offhand, yeah.
Who's getting the first Warglaive?
Anyways, what was that, Dwarfs?
This is all assuming human racials. On private servers, like anything above 310 weapon skill is
fairly like inconsequential, like it didn't matter.
Correct.
So yeah, I mean, I'm assuming it's going to be similar or the same on.
Yeah, except working
classic.
properly, where
Obviously,
weapons
like
skill will matter up to 310.
yeah, if we find something out, or like when the nerds crunch the numbers and they find something out, obviously I think it could be subject to change. But like for now, I don't think anything's wrong with that.
Well, my question
Works
is,
for me.
will let's say you're a warrior, and from what I remember with the weapon skill, it always was like on this graph essentially, like where once you got to like 311, 312 or whatever, it kind of would hard peak, and then you would get very minute. You know, and if it is like that, wouldn't like going from 300 to 305 be a much bigger gap than a rogue going from 310 to 315?
Well, yeah. Also, we gotta also wonder: will the warrior have what's those gloves?
They wouldn't be using Edge Masters.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying, aren't Edge Masters best though for warriors? But yeah,
Well,
I wish this was
they
to
don't
explain
have
it.
to
You'd
use
have to
Edge
explain,
Masters,
but that's
which
exactly.
gives them a lot more stats.
They would be at 309 with their weapon skill and Edge Masters, or not Edge Masters, with weapon skill and Maldat, they'd be at 309. So close, so they could get the Edge Masters that put them over the hard cap, but it's like, I think at that point, just getting to 309 would be just as sufficient, and then you can have a better in slot piece than having on the Edge Masters.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, like I said, I'm on board with all that. Unless some crazy math comes out where like 310 to 315 is just as good as 300 and 305. I mean, but I don't see that happening.
It'd have to be significantly better, or else we'd still go the same route. Because the whole point is you guys already obtain your 310, and they don't, so this would get them there, and that was the whole mindset. But there's no way for us to get away from Brutality Blade and Vishkak and Chromatic and CTS. The only thing is that you have to be aware, and if you really have your heart set on AQR, or you really have your heart set on CTS, think about the pieces that you take earlier. And just remember that when I say that, the way we're going to do the loot council, it's not just like the people that are getting the loot just get it because, you know, whatever, like,
And it's not that
they
you'll
didn't ask.
never get both, it's just you won't get it first, obviously, or probably second or third, depending.
But we're going to want, I don't know if anybody's watched retail recently. I know this add-on already works for Classic, but I don't know how well it works, so we'll have to see if they have the proper updated. But it's RC Loot Council. It basically, when the loot drops, a little prompt comes up to everybody in the raid, and it basically shows the pieces that are up for loot, and then you can put like a main spec, off spec, or, you know, the levels of how much you want this piece. And we're going to essentially use an add-on like that one, or that same add-on, that will help with when the piece drops. So if the CTS drops, then you can say, I want that. Even though we're going to have the list as well, saying the pieces you really want, but you can say, you know, I really want this. And then you'll be put into the loot council in that sense of being like, these are the guys that say they really want it, so let's talk about it amongst these guys. And then these are the people that say they don't really want it that bad because they're probably holding out for a bigger upgrade later on, or whatever their mindset is. But we want people to think about specialty pieces like this when you have an ever-changing thing. You're going to be switching out your weapons basically constantly. That's an ever-changing thing. So think about which piece you want to hold the longest, which piece you really want to obtain, and then realize that we need to be moving the pieces around to everybody, and that you're not going to be, most likely you're not going to have a Brutality Blade Vishkag before somebody else has their first Brutality Blade or their first Vishkag early on. You're not going to have CTS and Maladath right off the hop. You're not going to have these things. So don't think that way that you're going to have them. So think more about which ones you do want to have.
But on a side note, also, we are going to fully utilize the alt raid, which will hopefully alleviate some of that pressure where like we only see one or two drops of this or that. And so
that's a hot tip. If we're cool, we'll go ahead and we'll just make that final on that. So I think he has a sword rogue, goes over rogue, and then rogue.
On the note of those gloves, though, like I said, if two-hand doesn't work out, potentially some warriors could still get those gloves and be axe warriors, like one-handed axes.
Yeah, and that's totally viable if that ends up being viable.
Yeah, they could get like.
I can think how realistic all the warriors getting edge masters is going to be unless they don't get their epic mounts early on.
Well, it's also edge masters and then also getting the axe as well at the same time. So it's getting a really expensive BOE and also getting another drop that you know you're going to switch out of, that you know you're going to drop. You're not going to keep it forever.
Yeah.
One question I did have: these prios are for human and human racial only, right? We're not giving like
there won't be
CTS to gnomes and shit.
For warriors, there will not be a non-human warrior, basically.
And we did discuss like if
we're not
for
a PvP first guild.
If for some chance like we did happen to pick up someone that was like bleeding edge, like amazing,
sure,
we're not gonna like deny them, you know, just because they're not the right race. Like if they're beating us or competing just as good, would make sense. But from our history, that probably will not happen.
Yeah, that won't happen.
But no, we're 100% not going to give it to them. I don't care if they're beating every person in the raid. That makes no sense. No, like not first anyways. They'll get it eventually, but no, like anything that has like a gimmick to it kind of thing, it needs to be going to the proper class, especially if we're prioritizing them for that specific reason, which is their weapon skill. Like if the person isn't a human to start with, and we're prioritizing an item because of a weapon skill, that's just dumb.
Yeah, but that also implies like pick your.
They probably
race.
wouldn't go for that anyways. If they're not a gnome, they probably wouldn't want that for that same reason. They might want a different weapon.
If someone's crushing it as a non-warrior, I'm open to it, but I don't see that happening. Not with our rogues.
Yeah, but I mean, there always is a possibility that you get like someone just insane. But I don't really see there being like a whole huge gap between our best players and like the best in the world, sort of thing.
Also, like GSO said yesterday, I mean, if they're gonna have server transfers available, they might have character.
Race change.
Race change. They might add in the future, so that won't be at the beginning of the game.
I know, but I'm just saying that, like, if we come across a warrior who's really good but was, you know, not thinking straight when they made their character, that's a potential.
Sure. I think for all intents and purposes at the moment, though, we'll just keep it to the proper thing. Same with, there was something else that was supposed to be for human rogues only as well.
The ZG offhand?
I think that was.
Yeah, also gonna have to figure out who's going dagger.
Well, yeah, we can talk about that after. Wait, let's just keep going with the loot right now.
Discussion.
Yeah, let's just keep the loot.
I would assume anyone who's going dagger would want to go dwarf or gnome too, right?
Let's keep talking about loot.
Gnome or dwarf, yeah.
Okay, is there any other pieces in the one-handed area that we needed to address?
The only thing I had here was Claw of Kuromag. I think unless we get that to drop like week 1, should be a requirement that you have the AV offhand if you want to get Claw of Kuromag.
It's whoever, like, when the first people start getting their AV offhands, they'll get priority on it if they don't have a, whatever.
Because Blackwing Lair and AV drop same time, so we could realistic. But if you push hard in AV, like you could get it in a few days.
Like the 2 days to do it.
Yeah.
And with it being,
I like how 2 minutes
AV,
ago you just said we're not a PvP guild.
The AV rep, because your AV is a PvE, basically battleground, especially in 1.12. So. But
there's a lot of PvE gear in PvP, so go get it.
The AV in 1.12 is much faster. You don't have any of the turtles waiting for the Korok to spawn, and you don't have landmines. So the game should be really quick. You really shouldn't have to worry about having long drawn-out games, provided you're doing it early. If you're doing it the first couple of days AV comes out, most people will be in the mindset to win and get the games over.
Also, I don't think there's any other piece besides AV that we've ever expected people to get.
and everyone in the guild will be doing it. The tanks need to do it. The melee need to do it for the Don Julios. I don't know how it's gonna work for the like not the female, but the caster ring. I don't know how if that's gonna be out right away.
Call all casters?
No, because the other one's Don Julio's, which is a man, and the other one is a female.
20 spell pen ring.
Don Rigoberto.
That might be
Sounds
later.
like a girl's name.
I mean, it sounds like we are a PvP guild.
I don't know how that makes it sound like we're a PvP guild. But
I think it's got a crit. And
Everybody
20
needs to be
spell pen,
PvP.
So depending on which bosses have spell pen, it may or not. I mean, have spell resist, may or not be. Just depends on. We'll figure out whether or not we need spell pen gear for certain bosses.
Just because we want you to do like 3 days of AV doesn't mean PvP guild.
Up, it's over. PvP guild.
Okay, so you have the Cloud Chromag, and then you have the Sork Dagger, which is basically Sorcerer's Dagger.
What about the claw?
Basically
You have the
garbage.
claw with it's not in red, but tanks priority question mark. Tell all the rogues to GTFO. They also have that one-handed mace that I don't think anybody ever cares about with tank stats.
Like, I can't really see the Sork Dagger. Like, if somebody says they really want it, then sure, but like, isn't there, when you have a better piece than that, or is that actually an upgrade to something?
People have taken the claw who just haven't had luck with other weapons in the past.
It's really good for PvP too.
Well, that's fine. We don't mind people that want to take things for PvP, but we're just trying, like, we would loot counts or something like that.
I would say if a tank
Because we're on a PvP
think
guild.
that it would give them better threat over a PvP thing, probably go to them, depending, right?
Yeah, because I'm sure there's going to be some casters that want to rank to rank 10, because there's a lot of good PvE gear there.
Yeah, I doubt. I don't think that should have any prio.
Like
Yeah,
every
that's fine.
single class, just about their 2-piece blue PvP set in any combination gives you a like spell power, attack power bonus.
Okay, and so the same
So about Deathbringer, is that like maybe people that want to do the axes like you was saying?
if they had Edge Masters, they'd have to have Edge Masters, or else there's no way that's going to be better than having a sword. Like, I guess, like GSO said, like, if you're upgrading that from Adele Ren's, and like you're just not getting the other pieces, then yeah, like you could do it, but you're gonna miss out on your weapon skill, which is playing a huge role right now in Classic.
Yeah.
Like, now that it actually works.
It's the same issue with like rogues that want to go dagger. Like no one really wants to do it, but
you can at least pick up the gloves in Molten
Right.
Core, and then you can get this the same thing. So if you have those gloves, you could go daggers the same way as if, well, unless, is there a dagger that gives anything plus daggers?
Yeah, it drops from Cthulhu.
distracting dagger, but it's not
Like
great to
if
have.
you're a warrior, like you could get the axe from Neff, and that's pretty high top end damage. It's pretty beastly. So I could see like if you had Edge Masters and that, and then something else good. I think AQ has a really good axe too.
Well, you could get the Neff axe, or I think the trash drops like more of an
Point is, if there's any volunteers that want to go axe, it would be helpful to like the grade.
Well, that's what we're gonna do. Like, if it goes that way, like even if it means that, you know, if we happen to find a piece of Edge Masters on the way, we can just hold it in the guild bank, and then if somebody's like, yeah, I'll take one for the team and beat the axe guy, and we'll just toss in the Edge Masters and say, okay, have. You know,
Because there's
have it.
axe progression and dagger progression all the way through the end of the game. Though there's no Kel'Thuzad one-hand axe.
I'm not a pro in any of the melee shit, but you know, there's also that there's a helm that drops like in Uldaman outside off a rare spawn, and it's got plus axes. I think 7 maybe.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
never
You have to
Lionheart.
replace Lionheart.
Yeah,
I'm just
Lionheart is
bringing it up.
crazy.
It's just, you know.
Okay. So yeah, we can talk like Deathbringer. I still like. I think the tanks are going to talk about. You know, we'll see how our threat looks and see what kind of we gain either from a slow, hard hitting versus the faster weapon. Based off everything I've seen and what I've tested so far, it looks like we're going to be doing the original version, which is making like, you know, your Quasar is actually going to be good. You're going to be working somewhere between a 1.6 and a 2.0 swing timer, probably at the most. I don't know if we're going to be doing the Alcors type thing that we did on Nostalrius, but I think it's going to be much better than our threat, or not threat, but our rage generation has been on the last few servers. So I don't know if the tanks are going to want to take that piece, but I think we should leave it open to the possibility of it.
It'd be cool if Quellstar wasn't a meme anymore.
It would be, because
it's cool in theory.
It would also help for the
What
people
about
that are
that
farming
one-handed
it to keep the value
mace?
high. Pardon?
Mace in Blackwing Lair?
Spine Shatter?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're saying Quel'Sar is good, would that one be good?
Yeah, it might.
I don't think it has. Does it have the same top end?
Probably got more. It's slightly slower.
Yeah, I don't know. But that, either way, we won't know that sort of stuff until we actually feel how threat is.
Spine Shatter's 2.6 and 184
No,
top end.
2.6, so that's way too slow. Like, I'm thinking it's going to be too slow. I don't. The whole reason why Warriors went that way was because servers were not giving you rage for taking damage. So, like, you were only getting rage for the most part by doing damage. So, the more damage we were doing, basically, the more rage we were getting. So, that's why we started using these slower weapons. So, we started hitting harder and we would get more rage. Because it wasn't about, like, quick succession damage. It was about the physical number of damage you were doing. So, the bigger the number, the more rage you were getting in return. So the only way that we could max our rage was to get basically wearing full DPS gear, critting like as much as we possibly could while using the slowest weapon as possible. So that's why we were rocking things like the Deathbringer and that's why Iron Foe became such an amazing piece, because Iron Foe allowed you to get an extra swings in, so then if you had a lot of crit with it, and you crit on those swings, and it's like the bing bing is like threat, like the whole time.
Bing bing.
Yeah, those are the noises I heard all the time while playing.
Well, is the claw of slap shit really fast too quick? The haste proc?
Well, see, that's the thing. That might be actually good again. Where it might, that's what I'm saying. It might be more along the Nost lines, where we're using a faster weapon again, the kind of the way it was more or less intended. And I don't think we were ever intended to have this little weapon swing thing. But we'll have to find out. I haven't gotten to test it at level 60 yet. I haven't gotten to see the kind of rage I'm going to get off a mob hitting me when I'm that high of a level. So we'll see. I would just keep it open for now, that there might be a chance that we might want a whole range of weird shit.
Like, won't this all be moot anyways in phase 4 when everything gets normalized?
Everything's always going to be
normalized. What do you mean it gets normalized?
Well, all one-handers will be 2.6 speed.
That happens right off the start. They already said that's not being changed. Already that way. It doesn't need to show
right now.
It doesn't need to show it on your weapon. It's done inside the formula of how the weapon is calculated when it does the swing. It has nothing to do with what the weapon speed shows on your weapon. They've already have normalized.
Yeah, no, the weapon doesn't change on the tooltip of the weapon.
I can link you the formula, how it does the formula, but it has nothing to do with the weight. Every weapon speed, once it reaches a certain speed, it's given its own formula. It's basically a bracket. So once you're in between this speed and this speed, you're given this formula. When you're in this speed and this speed, you're given that formula. And as opposed to actually taking your real number and multiplying that in, it just multiplies. I believe it's a 3.0 for anything over 3, and then the other one is a 2 point something for the other one. It's already in the game, so nothing's going to be changed.
Okay.
For ranged, is there much to talk about aside from blaster shot? I see you have Heart Striker highlighted, prep.
Yeah, the blaster shot though, like we were saying that hunters might want to take that. Like I know it's not the best speed, it's like a 2.6, but hunters might want to take that, being that you probably don't have the greatest options going in for your pre-raid. What do you think, Miller?
I think it's better than the crossbow, but I don't play hunter.
The blaster shot over which crossbow?
Over your previous.
It'd be like the Black Crow, wouldn't it be, or whatever?
Well, yeah, it would be a bit better if you were hit capped. But I mean, getting that rare world drop is not.
No, not
No,
the
no,
BOE,
listen.
the Golem
Oh,
The blaster
Golem,
shot.
sorry.
Yeah, the MC weapon.
A Dwarven hand cannon. Blaster shot. It's just, like, would hunters just be like, no, we're not taking it at all? It's like, no, somebody's got to take it because it's an upgrade. Over your previous gun.
We were just wondering, with the speed being at 2.6, would it still be fat or slow enough that it doesn't mess up with the rotation?
GSO said, yeah. It's a lot more top end.
But the bow from Domo is better, yeah?
Yeah, of course.
So,
But
if that's
Rockler
dropping...
may not be out at the start.
Right, so if it's not dropping at the start, then that could be a possibility. If it is dropping, then probably is a moot point, because it would only be like a month or two before everyone has it.
Well, it would drop. It drops in Golem Egg, so we can hold the piece.
Values again for, I forget the exact values on the Prebus bow.
I can tell you what the exact values are.
I'm looking it up.
The Black Crow will have 77 to 117 damage, 3.2 speed, 3 agility, and 1% chance to hit.
That hit chance is pretty big.
Purple, are you playing?
So, versus 73 to 136 top end, 2.6 speed, and a crit. So you'd lose the hit, you'd gain a lot of top end with even faster. So it's definitely a damage increasing, but if you're needing the hit, right?
Probably get the hit somewhere else.
I mean,
Don't need
yeah,
none.
you get the hit easily, or well, without Dire Maul out. I mean, I guess
Yeah, no
it's-
Dire Maul.
It's gonna come down to seeing how much hit you need.
Okay. Well,
I
we'll
would
keep
say,
that
yeah,
up to
it's
a
an upgrade
possibility.
if you, yeah, I would take that over if I was hit capped over the Black Crow.
Okay. So yeah, I would say Hunter then for now, and then we can go if no Hunter says they really want it, then we can give it to some PvP person that may want it as just a stand PvP weapon.
So the same thing would apply, like, if you did get the blaster shot on Hunter, you'd probably be last in line to get your bow off Domo, yeah?
Probably, but I mean, the bow off Domo is not as rare of a drop as other items.
Guaranteed 50-50.
Yeah.
I would say that would be up to the Hunter group. They could talk about it. It depends, like if there's a
Right.
big argument over who could get that first blaster shot, like if 2 Hunters like I really want it, then yeah, like if it wasn't, no one was gonna take it, he's like, oh, okay, I'll take it, kind of thing. Like it'll be up because that's a Hunter piece, so we don't need to worry. It's up to the Hunter class leader to
It's
decide.
also wondering, waiting for Domo to drop the leaf,
Yeah, but it's like a 50% chance kind of thing. Well, that's just it. We might not drop at the start. It might be in right at the beginning. If they're following what they've stated, it should not drop. It shouldn't be in the game until phase 2. Because they said that items that were not released until a certain patch would not be in the game, but items that came in at the start of the game that were changed over the duration would be in the game with their 1.12 stats.
Do you know how many tickets they're gonna get if Domo doesn't drop a chest at the beginning?
Well, there'll be a chest to just be empty.
yeah.
But yeah,
It's
a
a
lot of
bug.
people won't know, and they'll have to answer that. Like I could make it just a post on the Blizzard thing because they could probably answer that. But anyways,
A lot of heartache later.
either way, so do keep that in mind. Though there is a chance that there won't be a benediction, there won't be a leaf, there won't be any of that loot that comes with that boss at the start. And we're going on to fingers.
For a second there, the only thing that came into my mind was Uncle Fingers. I was like, wait a minute.
Uncle Fingers.
Okay, so this is the one
I
that
don't
we
want to
had.
think about his fingers.
We had a debate about, and we had Randy talking for the Warlocks, but good that we have Kill here for another Warlock. opinion on this because we had a talk about the force concentration, ring of spell power, the shadow ring, and yeah. So, Val, you can explain that one.
Leaving Blackwing Lair, Warlock's best setup is the Shadow Ring and the Hit Ring from Blackwing Lair. Mages is Ring of Spell Power and the Hit Ring. So, since the Warlocks would upgrade the Ring of Spell Power, not relatively easily given the Hit Ring, but with the Shadow Ring they would use it over that. Mages should have Prio on the Spell Power Ring, at least until every mage has one.
And then we would then prio the Band of Force concentration to the Warlocks first.
Yeah, Warlocks would get the Hit Rings first.
What do you think of that, Kill?
Yeah, that makes sense. That's what I would do.
Cool. Not that anything's really been finalized when it comes to class leaders and stuff like that, but I would say, I know Kill is newer here, but we did speak with Randy. Randy he's definitely a candidate for the class leader person for Warlock, so I would definitely say that's okay, like that we could go on and put that in there. I don't think there's gonna be much issue with that.
I mean, I'm probably going to be playing mage anyways, so...
That's okay. We don't sound like we have many Warlocks as usual. We're going to have to get a hard recruit on Warlocks because they're such a hard commodity in Classic for some reason. So that's okay. But I think that made most sense when it comes to the loot progression.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, we don't have a Shadow Priest designated anymore. Like, we have Dirk, but he's kind of tentative whether or not he's going to be able to commit or not, so the Shadow Priest is kind of open. So, unfortunately, we do have Shadow Priest on some things that we're not certain when they should be slotted in, but I guess we'll have to wait on talking about that until we have a Shadow Priest and see what kind of mindset they have. Because ideally, you don't really want to prio them too soon, because no matter how much gear you give them, they're still never going to beat a Warlock or a Mage, or shouldn't. They might, but they really shouldn't. Yeah, well, he shouldn't have. They've had some of the best Warlock gear. But, yeah. Was there any other fingers that we had to talk about?
Yeah, 1 second.
Fingers with the Curie?
Yeah, it looks like just a Curia.
Yeah, this is a fun piece. So, now I have a couple rogue people. Can I get the rogue perspective on this piece? Drop Sniper.
What piece?
Band of Curia?
What about it?
Like, how much do you guys value this piece?
Like, as a tank, we will never take it off.
Well, no, it's not compared to us to them. I just mean, like, what do you, like, is this something you guys will keep always? Is this something you guys really need to get?
If you have Dragon Slayer's band, which is the Neff head, and you have Don Julio's band, you'd replace Don Julio's with a Curia, but if I'm being real, it's not a huge upgrade.
So you would use
I'd use a Curia if we were
Curia over Julio's?
Yeah.
So when we were talking about it last night, we were thinking that you guys wouldn't do that, but you guys would do that. Okay.
I mean, but the point is, like, if it's more beneficial for another class, like, I'm not gonna fight over
It's not so much that it's not beneficial for another class. We're just trying to see, because most likely what's going to happen
It's
is
not going to go to hunters over rogues.
No, but most likely what's going to happen is the first 4 of them are going to go to the tanks. Most likely, that's probably how it's going to go down. And then after that point, it would be between the rogues and the warriors. But we were just kind of seeing who wants it more, who needs it more, what's the more upgrade. Because we were thinking the same thing. Warriors would be using probably Quick Strike Ring and Don Julio's, or they'd be using the ring, the Ani Ring, or Don Julio's as well. So I'm not too sure. And then we were talking about when hunters get worked in as well, because I know hunters say they want it, right, Milan?
I'd be low on the list, even without.
I think by the end of the game they would want it.
Without dire maul out, you can still get hit capped, pretty easily with some of the pieces.
And you wouldn't hold that ring forever, though. You wouldn't utilize that 2-hit on that space. Because that's the main reason.
I don't know, going into AQ and Max, I doubt it.
Because that's the main reason with tanks getting it, because we do utilize the fact that we get their hit there. That's a big 2%, along with the crit, almost the dodge, and stam is really nice. But the majority of that hit there, same with the DFT. We've already not going to be taking DFT. Well, we'll talk about that when we get to it. But basically, the reason the warriors want it, the tanks want it, is because we need our hit, but we need that larger amount of hit on pieces that aren't the big stat pieces. Like, we can get much better items in other spots if we don't have to prioritize hit.
Yeah, like if you're using a ring, you could get 7 defense, which is like kind of minute compared to 2%. That's why we
our options for exactly.
So the reason, if you're curious, the reason why I value Curious slightly more than Don Julio's is so you take the 16 agi and the 16 attack power, and it's a wash. The 16 agi is half a crit essentially for a rogue, and so at the end of the day, you're looking at one hit. Oh, how do I? Let me.
One hit and half a crit.
Yeah, so the one hit washes, and then you're looking at basically one hit and 0.5 crit versus 1 crit. So how do you?
Right.
It's like a slight advantage, but it's not enough to really make any kind of difference. So like, I'm not gonna say like, oh, they need prio.
Right.
I mean, the agility would scale versus the attack power not with kings too.
That too, yeah. So TLDR, it's a little bit better.
Okay, so not heartbreaking though for the first 4 to be going off to the tanks then?
I would dump all my DKP on it.
Okay, great.
Or probably at all.
More benefit to the tanks over than.
Yeah, and then we were trying to think of the prio after. I think it would be more of a
rogue in DPS warriors.
Yeah, because hunters, I think they can get the hit other places, like you were saying, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so then I wouldn't
worry
worry too much
hit
about hunters.
from your talent anyways as a hunter, so that's a huge chunk. They're
Okay.
invested in talent.
Well, that
There's
makes it
also,
better.
like I said, ridiculous hunter rings later, just like a ring with just 33 agility on it.
And then we can just let the rogue warriors kind of debate it out. It'll be the last boss probably the night, unless we're doing something, so they have the 2 hours. Whatever.
Well, like I don't want to speak for other rogues because I mean, what they want to do is what they want to do, but I don't know how you quantify this, but I wouldn't spend any like loot priority points towards it. Like I'd rather spend somewhere else because Don Julio's and the Neff head is so easy to get relatively compared to that. Like I'd rather spend like that, priority on like a weapon or something.
I mean, you'd really want it just if you're at crit cap. Other than that, it's not really that big of a deal.
I think we talked about in Consolation, no tanks are going for DFT until like all the melee have it.
Yeah, we'll get to the DFT part and we'll talk about that.
Unless we had like a serious main tank threat issue, then we might
Well,
give like one early-ish.
That's what GSO was saying himself. Like if I'm holding you guys back from doing the proper threat, and that's something that's going to assist me, then we'll probably end up taking it. But we'll get to trinkets. We'll talk about it because there's a lot of stuff.
We'll do that next. I think we're good with rings.
500 health is holding you back.
It's 350, bro.
Okay.
Okay. Trinket. Or wait, did we get all the rings? Yeah, I had it all.
Well, we had cauterizing band, but there's no way of getting around the healers all wanting it.
Getting around the 2
All healers want both.
Yeah, so there's no
I
way
mean,
to debate that.
that one is like, if you have the MC one, you're probably not going to get the BWL one until,
But the one thing I hope people are noticing so far, there really isn't a lot of pieces that are going to require loot council to the degree of an actual group of people talking about who gets loot. A lot of the pieces are going to be handled amongst your own class, just talking in your own channel, and you have plenty of time to distribute the loot. There's going to be no rush in that sense, and there's going to be no
It's gonna be
downtime on
big
the
ticket
boss.
items like DFT and rejuvenating gem and
Yeah,
the
it's a
silly
handful of
healer
pieces.
rings and things like that.
And especially if we can keep working out things like this and get single priorities, it's going to get much easier.
Hey, Verdi, I messaged you on the side, but I know
Talisman.
with like the Cot band and Pure Elementium band, and then the 2 ZG rings, maybe thinking about trying to work out like a way for people that get the Cot band early or Pure Elementium band and
To
figuring
get the
out
rings
like
out of ZG.
yeah,
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
like okay.
Yeah, that would make sense. Do a combo until everybody can get both.
Don't the ZG rings get like a 2-piece gives you bonus healing?
Right, so yeah, it was pretty good. I know I was using that on Northdale.
So you're saying like if you don't have one of the MC or BWL, maybe you should get prio on those 2 rings?
On
Yeah.
the duo, yeah. That makes sense.
But I know that's, you know, a real long time because at that point you're going to need 3 different raids out and there'll be, you know, the main 40 and then 2 different ZG groups and like I don't want it. Like,
Yeah, but both those rings are kind of rare drops too, so.
Yeah, so you want to would want to strategically put a healer
Place healers, but
in
I
a separate
think
group.
at yeah, we'll talk about that when that time comes.
Yeah,
which
that's
healers
like
go with which
way
group.
later, and
But also,
on,
like, you gotta remember, LBRS will have that good ring out that all healers will get for pre-raid.
Yeah.
And there's a couple other pretty good
line.
pre-raid rings. So the ZG ones, like, might not be as good looking compared to them.
The Forge ring and the Rosewine Circlet are pretty amazing.
Yeah, I wouldn't drop either one of those until the epic rings.
Not even if you had both CG rings?
I mean, if you got both and had the plus healing, I don't know, I'd have to look at the stats on the CG rings.
And if you got them enchanted.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Let's do that.
But you get, I think, what is that? It looks like, it's 52, so I think Rosewine might have 52 itself. I
That's
believe.
29, I think.
When we get this loot stuff hammered out, I'm gonna be sending everyone a spreadsheet to fill out all the healers. And it'll be like filling out for your class specific items, and then filling out like rank wise how you rank the items that are shared with other classes. Just so you guys know that that's on the
Well, we're
process.
gonna do it for every class too.
Okay.
Yeah, if Harry wants to send her on.
Something I
she's
was
totally
planning on doing, but if
Yeah.
you have one already figured out for everybody, that's fine.
And the only reason why I just wanted that in mind, but I don't want to take up a shitload of time because it just depends on the drops, it depends on 3 raids
does.
being out, and it's just kind of a lot of variables.
We'll work it out so it's fair for all of the healers. We'll take care of it. Take care of it.
Yeah, that's the difference right there.
Okay, on the trinkets, we got looks like TOEP and DFT are the 2 question marks.
Is TOAP something that isn't Mage and Warlock? Is there any way to debate that off, or?
Not really, it's kind of best in slot for both. Like Mage, you have the option of rocking your Clash Trinket, which in everyone's experience is extremely rare because it doesn't drop. But TOEP's better for certain fights than the Mage Trinket. All the way until you get Saffron's Trinket, probably.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't.
So
Sorry.
it's kind of got to be equal.
And then you were talking about like prioritizing Warlocks for next tier.
Yeah, they need to hit more. I mean, we could say Mage Prio TOEP, Warlock Prio next tier, but we're already giving Mage Prio 2 items on MC, which is a bit much.
Right. So it'd be Warlock then Mage on the tier. And
Yeah, they
then-
really need the hit.
And like I said, assuming all our Warlocks, which hopefully will be the case, aren't terrible.
What's the other trinket they're gonna run?
They'll probably
Uber's
run
one?
ideally TOEP and tier, going into whatever, but
So that's both you guys
they
are both
have
into.
the 2 pre-raid trinkets, but they can actually use their DM trinket, whereas mages don't get a DM trinket. They get a spell power Dire Maul trinket.
Oh, right, the book, yeah.
Which I think doesn't really matter anyway, because they would use, I think, the 2 crit over spell power.
Yeah, the 2 crits
they hit a bunch
better.
of hit. And then eventually, like, there's a 2 crit or 2 spell power, 2 spell crit minus threat trinket that will be Warlock Prio, because they'll need it more than mages. That's
Okay.
an axe, so it's irrelevant.
Okay, then the other thing was the DFT, which, yeah, originally, so like we already said, we were gonna, instead of having tanks either being part of it or tanks getting prio to it, we're just gonna most likely, I really can't see that piece making or breaking my threat. Like if my threat is that bad that it's holding people back, that piece is not going to be enough, I don't think, in the long run. So I still think that's going to ultimately just be prioed to the melee the whole way. Which I'm sure they're fine with.
Yeah, and the hope there is, like, we didn't even talk about it, but I mean, we could, since we're already kind of going over the Thunder Fury thing we talked about many times before. You know, because once you got that on, then your threat, like the DFT, wouldn't be nearly as good, even if you were using it for a threat.
It depends on the hit situation, really. Once I get Thunder Fury, I pretty much am going to try and maximize my threat as much as possible then, because then it might be the opportunity where people can kind of go nuts, and that's what I'm hoping. So I can see myself being more wanting of a piece like that once I have a Thunder Fury, because I want the hit then, unless I already have the hit though. Like if I think I already can get close to my 8 or 9% with still good piece, but that attack power and the extra crit, and I don't know, it all depends on how threat works. Like if I'm getting nice rage gen anyways, I might not even need, there might not be any threat issue for anyone.
Right.
Like at all, so who knows.
Speaking of Thunder Fury, is Pro gonna end up tanking all raids? Or
Yeah, so we had a talk about this before, and not everyone was there, but we did have a lot of people for the meeting when we talked about how we were gonna do Thunder Fury. It was at the same time. Yes. Okay. It was at the same time we were talking about the loot council and stuff. So it has been a while ago that we brought it up. But ultimately we decided that it's going to go to the 4 tanks first. All the bindings. I know that's optimistic to think that we get 4, but that's how we're going to play it out. But how it's going to work is, as soon as we can get the alt raid going, the MC alt raid going, Pro's going to start main tanking that one, and I'll be main tanking this one. And then, so if I get the left binding or the right binding in my run, I'm going to have me and whoever is, like, so if Pro's still in the run, like if I get a binding, we don't have our alt run going yet, another binding drops, Pro gets it, that's fine and dandy. But if we do have the alt run going, basically the next binding is going to go to either Banny or Viral, and then if Banny were to get it, for instance, then he would then either swap raids or stay in the raid, and then the other tank would swap into the other group too, so that he has another chance to get it as well. And then, so like I wouldn't be competing for the same binding against somebody else. So if Banny, for instance, got the left and I had the left, he'd be pulled out of my raid, he'd go to the other raid, and then that way if the right drops, it's not a competition between the two of us, and there's a chance that he can get his in the other one and I can get mine in mine, and type deal. But mostly it just gives multiple chances, but not having us fight over it. And then, but it's going to be all 4 people ideally trying to get it. But yes,
4 max with that, that'd be amazing. All
absolutely.
4 tanks.
Have 1 main tank on each of the 4 horsemen, and then have DPS warrior off tanks.
I'll probably be
All
running.
with Thunder. God, that would be great.
Well, for the strat for 4 horsemen, we'd actually have it 2 of the tanks, like 2 of our, basically like the 4 people that didn't have the Thunder Fury, like our 4 warriors that were DPS warriors, they'd be on the 2 ones we're not DPSing at the start, and we would have the 2 that are on this ones to start with Thunder Furies, and
Do
the 2
the
that come
Thunder
in.
Furies debuff stack?
No. You basically have your 2 tanks tanking the in the corners, and then you have 4 tanks tanking, then you have 4 tanks standing in the center, so that they're not getting stacks. And then when the tanks have the stacks, they'll go in and they can grab their mob, and then the other tanks just walk out, and then they basically just do their taunt, and then they get threat just at the start when you have 4, so you don't have to move the horsemen at all. You don't have to do any sort of.
So long since I've done that fight.
The only reason I have it so fresh is that I've literally been watching as many videos and guides on all of that kind of stuff as I can, because I want to basically formulate the best strats for our guild as possible.
Be ready.
And I haven't personally been in Nax since Nax was the actual instance, so I want to be completely fresh on all that. But I have links to some
25 minutes.
Absolutely incredible guides.
Pop them into the Discord.
Oh, I'm going to, but like this guy has their private server guides, but he speaks from a classic standpoint, where he even states like things that aren't proper on certain servers the way that they should be fixed, and he gives strats that are doable for classic. They're not. There's no private server scumbagging or private server gimmicks that he's using inside his guides and the recent guides, but the effort he puts into the showing of all of it and stuff like that, it'll refresh a lot of people's memories immediately. And so it's, but either way, long story short, the Thunder Furies are going to go to the tanks, the first 4 of them. So the first 4 right bindings, the 5th one, then that'll go to most likely the top DPS, melee DPS. Hunters, I'm sorry, you're not going to get it.
All right,
I also plan on running pug raids with bindings reserved till forever. So.
All right, so chess we have looks like 1. That's just Rib of Volatile Power. And I think we mentioned like Warlocks and Mages will more than likely have their tailoring crafted chest. And even though this might be slightly better, this might be better to put in Paladin's hands.
Yeah, I think that's what we decided ultimately, that it would be better long term to a Paladin. Did any of the Warlock want to debate, or Mages?
Is this from Lucy only?
I concur.
No, I think it's a couple bosses.
Yeah, a couple bosses, and I've always wanted to try it, and I think that if it does drop, if nobody else is going for it, I mean, Warlocks, I think I'm going to give it a try this time around.
I mean, it's better than the Warlock chest. Mages a little bit better than our chest.
Including, like, set bonuses and stuff.
If other classes are going to go for it, then I'd stick with the blue robe.
Yeah, because you'd lose, 40 healing? You gain 2% crit. But then, it really comes down to, like, the farther in you get, having 2% crit on one item is pretty huge. Especially for Pallies and the free mana.
Right, and especially considering that if it is 59 point whatever intellect instead of the private server 29 intellect per crit, then that 2 crit on the actual just plain 2 crit is going to be huge. That'd be
that, and when we get to helmets, we're thinking of Prio and Pally's the Neff helmet too, which is even more crit.
I'd definitely like to try out the straight crit.
I know Vic did it on Nos, and I think he liked it.
Yeah, it's certainly, from what I've heard, it's really powerful in game, and it's kind of, but also like, you could have a chest that has like 80 healing on it end game. So how much is, losing out on 60 healing? Is that worth 2 crit? Well, depends on the fight. Like a patchwork fight, all would be awesome.
How long it is, or how much, if you're taking huge spikes of damage or something like that, I plan on, I think, running around with sets of gear, or at least swapping. I mean, everybody does that, but, you know, for longer fights, I think I'd go for
Yeah, the mana regen, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what about people? What about warlocks and mages that don't have tailoring?
Are there going to be any?
Well, yeah, why wouldn't they
Right?
though?
Should there be any?
I don't think that makes sense.
The only reason to have tailoring specifically is to have the Bloodvine set bonus or to be able to craft your piece.
Yeah, I guess once you get Bloodvine out, you're like mages and warlocks should all be basically using that for most AQ.
Mages can break Bloodvine much easier than Warlocks. Warlocks will probably use 3-piece of it until they get like BIS AQ gear.
Yeah.
And even then, I think they keep the pants forever.
Now, it could be the case where, you know, since it is a multi-boss drop, we might get, you know, 6 of them before we even get to Black Lair, and obviously there might be only 3 pallies that really want it, and all of a sudden we have 3 that go to other people.
Which is, yeah, and that's a bonus at that point. I think we should prio pally first, and then we can go mage warlock after that point if there's a major warlock says, hey, I really want to grab that. But I think they have other options that are more than sufficient. But now, are they going to want to drop the Robes of Exalted to pick that up right away? Or are they going to want to wait till they have more crit before they actually use that piece?
A good question.
I don't know, like, I think it was Val saying that's 2% chance to not use any mana, which is kind of a big deal. That doesn't really, like, whether you have 2% or 20%, it's static.
Well, I think the raw healing would be more static than a chance to crit.
But if you're stacking for the crit, then obviously you can switch up your other gear depending.
Exactly.
When you crit, you also heal for more too.
Oh, for sure. Like, there's no negative to it. I just think, are they going to be rocking a lot of crit pieces at that point? Are they going to basically be sitting there with 2 or 3% crit and dropping themselves 40 something healing?
What other stats do the Robe of the Exalted have on them aside from the healing? Like how much?
I think it's just stats and healing.
Like how much?
It's like spirit.
Some spirit, maybe a little bit of.
Robes of the Exalted, 11 spirit, 5 intellect, 68 healing.
So you're gaining a little bit of intellect too.
Which also
goes
towards your crit. You know, not by much. I mean, once Dire Maul comes out, it's a little bit different because there's going to be pieces that have crit on it, but at the very beginning, there probably won't be much, you know, there won't be a lot of items with crit on it. Whether it's 59 intellect to crit, you know, the thing. If it's 59 intellect for crit,
it kind of seems like it's a if you want to take it item.
Yeah.
Well, right, but would that be a piece that a major warlock would instantly just pop on and it would instantly be
if they aren't a tailor, yeah.
In that case, I wouldn't.
But they should.
But then paladins like tier 2 and tier 2.5 are both bad compared to it.
What are
they don't
healing?
need to get an upgrade. Like, if the Robes are Exalted are better, they don't need to just get an upgrade just for the sake of getting one. Like, unless they're going to use it, though.
I think.
I'll say, what other chest? Like, the paladins keep those into the Guardian Saint robes?
Yeah,
like, I'm
probably.
totally for them
but it's still a
getting
crit piece.
I still personally think that the Warlocks and Mages definitely should be getting the Robes just because they're a big upgrade to start with and you don't need to get a drop. You can just, like, you do have to get a drop, but, like, you can just get it.
But we're kind of thinking most of them should be tailoring to start anyhow.
Exactly. So in that sense, then Pallies should then get it anyways, even if they're not going to put it on, as long as that isn't a big upgrade over the crafted robes themselves.
So let's say that. So if we do have any locks and mages that are not tailored, and they're not tailored for good reason, then they can get that. But if they're not tailored because they're being like cheap or something stupid,
Well, that's the only thing I can chalk it up to is they're being lazy. I can't see what is
Right.
the valid reason.
Like I said, mages, you don't have to use 3-piece Bloodvine, and the robes of volatile power are slightly better than tier 2 and the crafted Jasper Fire.
I mean, I could see if I was like wanting to push rank, I would definitely want to be engineering on a mage or warlock.
Yeah, I plan
And
on being
then-
tailoring and engineering though, so it just
Especially
depends on what
early
they want
on,
to be
you
aside
would
from
want to have
engineering.
like herbing or something to get money.
Push us 5.
Yeah, so if somebody wants to be like herbing or something in engineering and don't want to be tailoring because they don't want to make an alt or something because they don't have time.
Is engineering going to be required?
At some point.
Eventually, yeah.
Okay.
Now we haven't ironed out
We'll
exactly
give you time
when,
to set up alts though to support.
It's probably gonna be around AQ.
but probably before
Oh, okay,
AQ. That's when we'll have like you probably need your fast mount, engineering, and
It's not probably
ZG Exalted,
by
stuff like
AQ,
that,
you need your fast mount.
And engineering.
and ZG Exalted.
Yeah, and CG Exalted.
$5.
Which should be very, very easy to do. Okay, well, let's continue. But yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm still not super sold on them not having tailoring. I still can't quite see the reasoning to have not having
I'm
it.
just trying to
So-
give you arguments for the sake of giving you arguments.
No,
Like I
for
said,
sure,
I'm
exactly.
gonna be
I just-
tailoring engineering.
I just think for having that kind of
But I'm
piece
planning on having
for
5 level
progression.
60 alts.
Just
Like, if you
depends on
want to
how
switch out
early
later-
we get it. Like if we're just already in MC like a couple weeks in, are people gonna have? I don't know. Like there's some people that want to have herbing and then pick up herbing on their alt, and then like do the switch between their professions.
I'm gonna start with Irving.
That's what I'm
and
doing.
then
I'm going to
drop
be
it later.
tailoring herbing and then drop herbing when I get a level 60 alt for engineering.
But we'll play that by ear. But for the most part, yeah, mages and locks should have tailoring as we get into raiding. Like, especially with the Bloodvine, that 2% crit that you're going to miss out on completely. It
Like I
doesn't
said,
make
mages
sense.
can break it, but there's often plenty of reason to wear all 3 pieces depending on the gear that you get.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's go cloak. You got the trifecta saffron drape from Oni, Broodlord one from Neff, and you got the ZG hit cloak of consumption.
Okay, yeah. So this was the fun one. So I believe we have it in the comments. So we had it that the warlocks would get prioed on the Ani Saffron Straight, and then okay, that makes it easier. Okay, and then the mages would then get prioed on the Cloak of the Broodlord, and then warlocks would then get prioed on the Cloak of Consumption, which is the ZG one, so the 20-man one. Because again, with the hit, with them ultimately in the end wanting that hit, they would end up most likely dropping from the Cloak of the Broodlord to grab that hit, where the mages could be sufficient by still holding on to that, and then they could take the cloak hit after if they wanted it.
In fact, by the time cloak consumption comes out, mages are going to add 2 more hit from their head and leg enchant.
Yeah. So that was our thought with that. If somebody has anything against that or thinks that makes sense.
I would say the warlock for the saffron thing is if they want to sacrifice the spell power for the stats.
Yeah, we were just giving them an option.
For both classes, you can get more spell power with Prebis.
Yeah, there's greens that are going to have higher. There's of the shadow greens that are better than that. If you happen to get it, but that intellect and stam might be something you want. We were just giving you guys an option, but realistically, it really is just mostly between the Blackwing Lair and the Zalgrub thing, which they're roughly around the same time. But yeah, you'd have to wait a little bit longer, but you would get the better piece ultimately by waiting for the Cloak of Consumption. What do you think about that, Kill? Seeing as you're our go-to Warlock at the moment, even though you might not play Warlock.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, unfortunately, there's not a lot of options for cloaks, so it kind of makes things difficult. But yeah.
Keep in mind the time between. This is just our thought process, but the time between phase 3 and 4, same with the time between phase 2 and 3, shouldn't be very long because it's not a lot of content that comes out during those phases. So expect Blackwing Lair and Zalgrub to probably be fairly close together, so you're not going to have a huge wait time between when Cloak Consumptions, and also it's going to be the 20-man raid, so there's 2 chances to get it every 3 or 4 days. So every 3 days. So, and we will be doing ZGs for as long as people need the loot, basically on their lockout. So every 3 days, essentially, or at least in that area, so that we can fit it in. I don't want to be missing any of them. I'll be doing ZGs on off raid nights as well if it's necessary in order to make sure.
Runs. It's gonna be great.
I hate ZG, but I also know how.
ZG?
I also know how important ZG is, though, and how many pieces are actually huge upgrades out of that instance. So, ZG is going to be a big priority.
The greenest instance in the game.
I've actually never done ZG.
Oh, well, you will like it for the
You
first.
are in for a treat.
It's not bad as long as you don't tank it. But then it's fine.
With DPS,
I've never been
healing
there.
Just don't.
ZG's terrible.
It's not good.
Healing's a real fun thing too.
Yeah, and Mage Life in ZG is a lot of fun.
We want to talk about
Why didn't you sheep it?
Zillion Tiger Hide Cook from ZG. 13 Agi, 1 hit.
Oh yeah, that was the one that I was gonna see. The rogues wouldn't want that over the one-off in Blackwing Lair, right? The 50 attack power one, right? 12 Snipe Blade still there.
Which one, Michael?
The Zillion Tide Tiger, the 13 agility, 1 hit compared to the one that drops off of Flame Gore. Or Fire Maw, sorry.
What about a mount?
What? So what we were thinking is most likely the warriors would want to take the draconic one, the rogues would want to take the cloak of the fire maw, and then we would say the hunters would probably take the Zulian tiger hide one, maybe. Would you guys want that?
Sure, if we aren't on the list and haven't got anything by that point.
Yeah, because we were assuming
Hunters
you guys.
always kind of get.
Well, hunters also have the rag cloak as their option too, huh?
They're last on the list for most things.
Well, that's why we're trying to give you some pieces that are.
Well, hunters
like
also
it's
have
their
the
own.
rag cloak on their option too, huh? The 20-something agility cloak.
22.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that'd be better because the hit's not going to be really a big problem for a hunter.
Okay. Well then, that's fine because we have you guys set for the Molten Core one as well.
So I kind of remember rogues really wanting to get that Zillion Tiger Hide cloak. I don't
That's
remember why.
because the Brood Lord or the Cloak of the Black Baron wouldn't fucking drop.
There's Nightblade, Comet, and cloaks.
What cloak? The ZG cloak?
The Zulian Tiger versus your Cloak of the Shrouded, or no, Cloak of the Fire Maw.
The Black Baron is better than that.
Well, I
if you
think
don't
I'd
need
take
to hit.
the Black Baron one over the Fire Maw.
No, over the Zulian Tiger Hide.
I'm pretty sure the ZG cape is better. The other thing is a little more agility, right? Forgot the exact stat.
13 agility, 1 hit.
Yeah, I mean, you could move it around. If you're fully world buff, you're gonna have to figure out like where your crit cap is, and from there you can decide like what little accessory items that you'd want to swap out.
Black
Would
Baron
you-
is 15
would you drop
agility,
that?
20 attack
Would you
power.
drop the Cloak of the Fire Maw over that though, like the 50 attack power one?
Oh shit. Yeah, you could. I mean, I've never done the testing of like which one's better, but
Because we have Hunters Proud on the Molten Core one, then we had Rogues Proud on the Cloak of the Fire Maw, and Warriors Proud on the Draconic Maw one. And then the Zulian one, we were thinking maybe Hunter, but if Rogues would want that. But isn't the Black Baron better? Or is...
I would just say like probably shouldn't be proud for hunters, because at that time, I mean, it's just a matter of if you're going to be crit cap with world buffs, you're going to want that as a rogue, and I'm sure that would be better than the other two capes. But I would probably I'd probably go with the Black Baron over the Fire Maw, and then if I needed to hit, I'd go over with the ZG cape over those two.
Okay, and then Hunters wouldn't use the Fire Maw though, would they? They'd want agility over attack power, wouldn't they? Or do they only want agility for attack power?
It's a 2-to-1. Pretty sure, right?
Yeah, the
agility
Rad Cloak would give him 44 attack power plus Kings.
Yeah, so it'd be just as good as a Fireball. I added the AQ40 cloak too. So it's got 16 agility, 11 strength, 1 hit.
There's also the class AQ cloaks too to factor in the 20 ones. I think some of them are pretty good. Those are relatively easier to get than I'd say the AQ40 one.
And then the Warriors aren't going to want the Zulian Tiger though, right? So it'd be Rogue Hunter on the Tiger Hide. Then
Yeah, like the Rogue AQ 20 cloak is 18 agility, 1 hit, 11 stamina, so it's straight upgrade from the ZG cloak.
I don't know, with Warriors, aren't we in the same spot as Rogues when it comes down to, if we're world buff, it just comes down to we need more hit, but when we're not world buff, it's...
And then the Warrior AQ20 cloak is like a downgrade from the AQ40 cloak.
Yeah, and especially on like a true progression, you're probably not going to keep world buffs if we actually have real progression going on.
Like, I just put it on the side note, just saying don't always... I wouldn't even include world buffs.
I wouldn't have had world buffs in the weighted factor of it either.
So, out of all that, what do we think for that ZG cloak? Just not sure.
If Rogues would actually use it.
Rogues were the hit. I mean, I wouldn't use that over the Black Baron cape.
So yeah, if Hunters wouldn't even use it, then I would just put it for Rogues, and then the attack power cloak. Then if it's really not that good, and if you're just going to switch it out, if Hunters want, you can throw Hunters in with that too. But I guess it could be Rogue as well. And then Hunters will just stick with the Shrouded.
The AQ40 cloak for Rogues and Warriors.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Defeat. I don't see any feat that we need to talk about.
Sorry, I heard you guys talking from afar. Are you guys
Oh,
done talking about the cloak?
You can throw in your 2 cents still.
What was the fireball?
50 attack
50.
power.
I think it was. Like, I'm trying to remember because obviously the stat weights. I don't know if they're going to be exactly how they are on private servers as they are going to be on classic. But I remember them all being like face value of all of them. They're all pretty much the same, but because of like ZG buff and like the Pally buffs and stuff, I want to say like the Baron or the Zulian Tiger Cloak would be better. But again, the hit, like Napoli was saying, is situational. The more hit you get, the less valuable it is. The more crit you get, the more valuable it is, you know? Like at a certain tier, assuming you have enough hit. It's kind of a complicated like formula. So, I mean, I would say of the three, the Cloak of the Baron and the Zulian Tiger Cloak are the better of the two for rogues. But again, it's situational. If you already have a fuck ton of hit, you're not going to want the Tiger Cloak.
I wouldn't base world buffs on anything though.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even count them in the mix.
Yo, quick question.
But they're relevant though, because the ZG buff and the blessings
CG doesn't
are
last
going to
through
be a
death.
thing.
What does the FR stand for?
CG stops lasting through death in like 1.9.
Did you just ask what FR stands for?
Yeah.
Fire
resist.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. But yeah, ZG buff does not last through death in 1.12.
I just couldn't hear him very clearly over Michael and Dwarfs. Didn't mean for that to sound condescending.
No, you're good. No, you're good.
She was being totally condescending. Don't.
Fuck you, Michael Fox. Fuck you.
Yeah, and we were.
You gonna call me a bitch, Bilar? I'm gonna have your girlfriend smack you over the fucking head.
I know we kind of we talked about in the
I would if you
past
called someone else a bitch.
with the world buffs, but we're kind of thinking since they are very unreliable, it's hard to want to try to put effort into getting them. Like, it's gonna be really hard if you know you're not gonna get the Oni buff, and then to waste time by not being online and getting it like the day before, and not like going out and farming. Like, even though like you would do good in that hour where you have the buff, like you could have been on like for 8 hours or something. I mean, you could always level an all during that. We still need to really get a final say with world buffs to what we actually do with Dire Maul too.
It's a really rough situation all around.
Yeah, with the Oni buff, doesn't it have a time window too that you can't do it because if somebody else had done it before, it was like a 4 hours so you could put it up again or get the buff.
I personally think they're great if you need to get through content. Like, you need to smash out. Like, you need to get through MC so you can do Black Lair as much tonight as well. Whatever. Or, hey, we're really struggling with this boss. Let's get full world buff so we maybe just actually kill it tonight. That was kind of like always the intent back in the day. Like when you would see the best guilds getting their full world buffs, it's because they were going for like the hardest thing and they wanted like a really solid attempt on it.
It's a difficult situation all around, because if they just decided no world buffs whatsoever inside raids period, it would honestly solve a million problems, and I wish they would do it, but I know they won't because they're Blizzard.
Is your only problem ranking?
Ranking?
Well, they don't need to remove world buffs from anything because it doesn't have any.
Okay, so it creates disparity. If we're, as you said, you want to take it really seriously, blah blah blah. We'll make sure people are pushing the limits. They're wanting to compete against each other. How do you start quantifying people's performances? As some people are getting raid buffs, some aren't. Who's good? Who's bad?
This will be taken into...
Well, if
one
you
person dies early, the rest don't.
If you put in the same effort, like if you have your consumables, if you're on time, if you're helping people get their gear, if you're helping do farming for the guild, if you're doing the bosses correctly and your numbers are comparable and the guy is only beating you because he has world buffs, it's easy to quantify it. It's easy to look at that and be like, okay, well, he went and got world buffs. That doesn't mean he's the more efficient player. But
how
on the
do
nights
you
where we
know?
require it, you need to get him. But there's no reason to be like, on our 7th farm night of Molten Core, be like, yeah, everyone needs to get world buffs. Like, if we're going for a speed clear, for sure, but to tell somebody that they need to go get world buffs when it's not necessary, it's hard to make that mandatory. Obviously, I think people are going to do it anyways because their competitive side, they want to see the bigger numbers, but like ultimately, I think it ends up being a bigger negative in the raid than a positive for the most part, because I've never seen one person lose their world buffs and go, oh well, that was okay. It's never that. It's, let's make the entire raid about me for the next 10 minutes, whine, maybe log out, not talk for the rest of the night, complain, talk shit about other people doing well, hope people lose their buffs, hope people die. It's never a positive outcome from having world buffs. So to make it mandatory to willfully bring in a negative just for the sake of hopefully somebody can get a rank, because at the end of the day, that's really all it's about. Because once prog is done, once we're just doing farm nights, you're not trying to get the top number because you think you're about to lose your spot. You're trying to get the top number because you want the rank on the server. Like, that's fine and dandy and all, but I can't make that mandatory for people to have to do it just because somebody else wants to do it, unless it's necessary. If it's necessary, it's different.
Maybe we can petition the rank sites to have a no worlds buff category.
I just think, like, realistically, we can easily look at numbers. I don't think we're that hasty in being like, oh, that guy is so good, why? Like, and just scratch our head and stare at the wall. Like, we're going to be like, you're going to have world of logs, you're going to have everything. You're going to be able to look at people and break them down and look at their numbers and be like, okay, well, this guy had every world buff, every single thing possible. He was rocking flasks, blah, blah, blah. And you can look at that as effort, or you can look at that as a crutch, because if he's just beating somebody that didn't do all that stuff, well, there's a bigger problem there than the fact that he put the effort into the world buffs when he could have put more effort in his rotation or his position on a boss.
So are we talking about just Ani or all world buffs? Because Ani's the only one that's not reliably able to get.
Talking about Dire Maul. More specific
so it's
than
like
anything.
you just do Dire Maul. Is that okay? So
it's not that I just don't want to do it. It means it's an hour ahead of an earlier raid for buffs that could get lost, that, you know, some people might not even get because they couldn't get on in time or got in when the mob despawned, or they didn't run their own clear. There wasn't enough tanks to do their own clear or something like that. But it's mostly about DM buffs, more specific.
Put a poll to it. I don't know.
It's not about a poll. If people want to do it, they can do it. But to make it a mandatory thing, like, we would have to change our raid times. If we want to recruit players, we tell them our raid time is 10 to 1 a.m. But really, you need to be on at 9, or else you're not going to get your world buffs. And you don't have your world buffs, you can't come to the raid because they're mandatory. Like, then we have to tell everybody our raid times are actually 9 to 1 a.m. because you need to be on an hour before raid, or you're late.
Yeah, so, we've done it on literally every private server we've played on.
We've never made it mandatory.
Okay. But
are you arguing that, though? Like, have we ever made it mandatory for people
no,
to
but
do it?
literally 95% of them would still do it. You're making it sound like
they're allowed
no one's...
to. I'm not telling people that they're going to be removed from the raid because they have a world buff. I'm trying to say that if you have a world buff, don't think that because you beat somebody that makes you good now.
And also just...
And don't think we're going to prioritize them, or think I give a fuck if you lose them and whine about it. I'll just remove you. Like, because I don't want to hear that anymore.
95% of the people did it. It would have been a far less percentage if there weren't 3 groups clearing it.
Just don't pull a Serena.
So, like, wait, we can't do that still?
No, you're totally missed the point. We can do whatever you want to do. If you have a tank that says, hey, I want to get on there and clear it, and I want to get the world buffs, and if it's all working out, that's totally fine. No one's going to be reprimanded for getting world buffs. But I'm trying to say is I'm not going to tell people you must have world buffs unless I tell them they must have world buffs. If I say tonight we need to get this boss down, we're having problems in most likely Nax, where I say, okay, tonight you need world buffs, then that is a mandatory. That means if you don't show up with world buffs, you're not getting in the raid type thing. But on a regular night, I'm not going to say, hey, we're doing MC tonight, you need world buffs. Like, I'm not going to say that. But if you show up with them, if you wanted to put that time in to get them, there's no negative. There's no like, oh, well, he had world buffs and I didn't. Like, it's like, okay, cool, like, he had world buffs. It won't matter. Like, I get your point, but really when it comes down to it, it's not going to be that kind of cutthroat competition. And if it is that kind of cutthroat competition, then we'll maybe step in and say, okay, if it's seriously between you and this person between a raid spot, you guys both don't come with world buffs. You don't come. You just come as a player and just see how you guys just play. Like, you make it play even playing fields or something like that.
Yeah, but still, like, okay, so you have a worse player A who gets world buffs and you know this guy's not as good as player B, but he's still doing more damage because he takes the time to go get world buffs. Are we going to replace the worst player because
we would replace the player?
We know he's not as good, even though he's still doing more damage in the raid.
Like if he managed to survive the entire night somehow, and his numbers looked good, like I don't understand what you mean by replace.
So it's not going to be a huge DPS disparity between somebody that has world buffs and somebody that doesn't.
Yes, there is.
If you're a good player, there is, but if you're a trash player and you have world buffs, it's not going to all of a sudden make you the best person in the raid. And again, you will know that. You can look at that and be like, look at your numbers, like we know you had world buffs. Like, it's not going to be like something hidden. But it's also not going to be that big of a deal because we're going to know more about the player, and as well, like, if say you're the class leader of the rogues and you tell the rogues that you need to have world buffs, you can make those kind of calls if you want to. If you want to tell all the rogues, like, hey, there's a lot of competition right now, I expect people to put the most effort in as possible to make sure that you're doing what everyone else is doing, go for it. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm saying I'm not going to make it mandatory when it's not necessary.
If you're concerned about, like, us not judging world buffs versus not world buffs and this player versus that player, like, we want to see, like, the raw damage, not the here's my world buffs damage. So for the most part, I would say we probably would just put it, like, normalize all the damage, and we would say, okay, Dwops is doing 500 damage per second, but he has world buffs, so, like, normalized, it's like 370 DPS, which is comparable to the other rogue who does not have world buffs, or whatever. Like, I'm sure there's, like, static values we can shave off to get, like, a pretty good idea.
Or just tell them to take the world buffs off.
I'm curious if sites can actually calculate that. I don't know if they can or not, though.
I doubt they can calculate the number with that.
Difficult.
But the main thing is you can do it. Like the people that are looking after the classes, like none of the, I know for a fact, none of the rogues that we have in our guild are dumb. Not one of them is going to sit there and be like, wow, I have no idea why that guy is doing so much more numbers than I am. Like, there's no way. Like, you're going to know, and it's not going to be that big of a deal. Like, Purple Rice is still going to come last no matter how much world buffs he has.
That's true. Push to fucking talk, man.
But, my main point is I'm not just making it mandatory. It doesn't mean you can't have them, though.
I hear you. And I don't want to speak for the entire guild, but for me personally, like, what keeps me engaged, what keeps me interesting is competition. Like,
but world buffs doesn't, that you don't need world buffs to be competition.
Well, I mean, if I'm competing against someone,
if you're competing,
I want to be on the
rank.
even plane. I don't care about the ranks at the end of the day. Like, I mean, it's nice, it's cool, it's great, but I'm talking about, like, if I'm competing against an expert, say I'm competing against, like, Terry or Purple or whoever,
then don't have world buffs.
You better fucking bring the war buffs. All
right.
So
what he's saying is that even if it's not somebody in the guild, it's somebody on some other site, that he's watching the DPS meters. That's And I know what you're saying, Michael, that it doesn't matter. You're not going to judge people by their world buffs or not.
Well, he's specifically trying to say it's not about ranking. It's not about other guilds. It's just about within our own guild and competition with our own guild. But if everybody is not being told they have to get world buffs and they decide to not do it, the only reason that they would bring the world buff is for their own personal numbers, and it's not to flaunt it in our own guild. It would be for ranks.
No, that's wrong, because your ranking is completely tied to the performance of your entire raid. The faster you kill the boss, the higher your damage is.
Correct.
That is true, yes. Faster boss times, higher DPS, yeah. GSO still ranked number 1 on almost all of the servers we did with one of the slower boss times. Like, you can still rank. He did.
So, that being said, it's hard for, like, me, I'm either full go or I'm like 0 go. Like, I don't do, like, okay, kind of trying. That's just me personally. So like it's hard for me to stay engaged and give a fuck on our 10th clear if we're just like, oh, whatever, we'll just fucking cruise through, blah blah blah. I mean, maybe that's my problem. That's my whole thing with like how it's hard for me to just.
You coming on an hour earlier and getting world buffs will subside that.
I don't
What do
think
you
it's
mean?
more for WOPs. I think it's more for the progression of the guild, and if
Like if
I
half the
see,
guild.
I see not having it.
World buffs will be there if we need them for progression. I've already said that it's not about not using world buffs. It's about not making them mandatory on farm or mandatory when it's not necessary. Keep in mind, there will be no world buffs for Molten Core except for Ani and Neff. Well, Ani, there won't be Neff. You'll have an Ani head. That is it. There will be no Dire Maul. So once we've cleared MC and it's not a speed night and we're just going in there, you're really going to be like, oh, well, we did this all this other time, no problem. But all of a sudden, now that Dire Maul's out, for the progression of the guild, we need them. That makes no sense to make that mandatory at that time because we're going to have Dire Maul out before Blacking Lair. We're still going to be doing mundane content with no need to come on an hour earlier to get world buffs for no reason, unless we're doing speed clear. Like if somebody's like, tonight we're gonna fucking smash it, I am so fucking keen to come on earlier. Or if we're doing a speed clear, you don't need to be on fucking earlier. We can literally get the world buffs at our raid time and just do it regular. But regardless, like there's just no point to say, just for the sake of somebody saying I want to spice up my raid night by having world buffs. Like that's great, spice up your raid night. I'm not going to make it mandatory. I'm not going to tell everyone you need to be on an hour earlier and have your raid buffs so that somebody can feel like they're having competition. Like I just don't get it. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's fair.
Also, if it's for the guild,
but I'll be on clearing it. I'll be there.
That 1 hour, like where we could have been all doing something else. Like there's so much more benefit if we're all picking Black Lotus, let's say, or doing something that's not getting a buff that shaves off 20 minutes of time or 10 minutes of time or whatever.
Well, shaves off tons. It's not the shave off time. It's just it's the negatives when you lose it. It's not the guarantee that you would keep it, and it's just like the point of like, do you need to have it that night? Is it going to benefit the raid for that night? If we're trying to do MC Black and Lair on the same night, yeah, we probably might need to go and get ourselves some world buffs, knowing that we're probably not going to die doing one or the other. Like if we end up saying we're going to do MC first, so we don't lose the world buffs, we know we can just clear it out in 30 minutes. Then we do something like that. But it's like I just can't validate, or else we really have to change our raid time recruitment to facilitate so that people know that like you need to be on earlier to get world buffs, or else you're going to miss them. And even though you were half an hour there before raid, you're going to be late to go all the way out to Felwood to get your DM buffs, and then we're probably going to have to summon you, and then hopefully you're there in time to get the Ani buff and the Songflower buff. It's not like there's no way anyone can sit here and pretend that we didn't sit at Songflower a million fucking times waiting for people in DM to summon them over to the point where we would lose it to a random person coming over and clicking it on us because we sat there and waited. But then if we would have just clicked it, then we have somebody already upset before raid even started because they didn't get Songflower. It's just like, I know a lot of people here don't give a shit about it because you don't have to deal with that kind of stuff, but as the person that does have to deal with it all the time, I can tell you it's not fun, and it ruins my raiding experience having to listen to somebody complain that all of a sudden they died and now their night is ruined. And what's the point of even playing because my solo night is ruined? 39 other people can go fuck themselves.
Experience, right? Or occurrence.
From a leadership standpoint, I understand where you're coming from. My concern is if half the raid like really cares and really wants to push it and they really want to improve themselves each week, and the other half is like super casual and they're just like whatever going through the motions, like what if it starts creating animosity between like half the raid with the other half the raid because of that? Like, and again, there's no easy answer to it. It's shit, and like the only real answer I can see is if Blizzard just says fuck it, no world buffs inside raid. But obviously, I don't think that's an option. But I think that would be amazing.
Like you said, we could do that for ourselves and just say it's not mandatory for our raid night. Then you don't have to worry about it. We don't have to worry about it. Mike doesn't have to worry about it. We just go in bare fucking bones.
But
But if you get the buffs, it's still okay.
But the sites that track all of our DPS and stuff will show the buffs, and it'll show if you have it for the fight or not. So it'll be easy to tell, like, hey, this guy had full buffs. He
That may
should be
even
doing
become the
better.
meta, to be honest, in speedrunning, is to have the no buff speedruns. Because that would be actually proof of showing how fast you actually clear the fucking instance.
If there is like legitimate issues with like Oni buff and world buffs and stuff like I think there's going to be, it wouldn't surprise me if like that actually became a thing, like in the community, where they just said no buff runs, just to
we can make it
have
a
a
thing.
baseline.
We can just every time we post logs specifically point out no world buffs, no world buffs, no world buffs.
Yeah,
and we can
'cause our
always
raid-
push to be on top of the no world buff clear time while other people are not, maybe.
And it's just like, I don't want to make it seem like I don't want people to try. And I get where Dwarf is getting by, where if people just kind of just lazily show up, 10, 15 minutes before raid and just do their thing and log out. And,
Do I still have to come with 2 stacks of broids, 2 stacks of
But
agility?
it's just-
You better as shit.
But that's just it too. Like, you're still going to be expected to have your full consumes. You're still going to be expected to bring
But
all
why?
that kind of stuff.
It's not necessary to
What
clear.
about,
No, that stuff is
It's a
always
slippery
going to be
slope.
necessary.
I
It's not
found
a
a
slippery slope because
consumable.
I just made the rule. I already said no. Like, straight up though, like, I can make whatever I want mandatory whenever I feel like it. That's the
we
job
can't-
I've bestowed
so
upon myself.
We're supposed to bring consumables, max consumables, but not war buffs.
Right, you're not supposed to bring the thing that you can't just put right back on yourself after you lose it and not cry the whole night about it, because you have to go and leave the instance to go get it back, whereas you can pop a mongoose again, you can pop a mite. Like, you're talking to someone who's going to be rocking more consumables than all of you, and I die when you guys die too, most of the time. There's some times where, like, if we're fully wiping it, you're getting instant give. Like, you're not going to have those moments in MC like we were having where you're going to get that fire blasting instant giving you guys. I'm pretty sure that is a private server specialty. So certain moments where you guys are just going to die is most likely going to be because of your own fault, I would suspect, or it's because we're all wiping and we're all losing our buff. So it makes more sense to make something mandatory that you can put back on than something that goes, okay, let's go leave the instance for 35 minutes to get our buff back, kind of thing.
You'll never do that.
I don't think we'll
Exactly,
ever do that.
that's what I'm trying to say, that I'm making one thing mandatory that makes sense because you can actually make that mandatory versus something that is a temporary thing that might be gone after one wipe.
So is there anyone else besides Dwops? Because you're both very passionate about it. I want to hear from. Does anyone else have something to say about world buffs? If you think we really should have them? You think we really should not have them?
I would love to not have to do Dire Maul.
I mean,
I don't think it makes or breaks it for healers.
Yeah.
And I'm
From
still
a healing
open
standpoint.
Right, it doesn't.
I'm still 100% open to Songflower, like, all the time, because that's, as long as it works the way it's supposed to work. People say that it is supposed to work with the mass collection, and you're supposed to be able to do it that way. So if that is the way it works, there's no problem doing Songflower, Oni buffs if we can get them, ZG buffs if we can get them, because those are something that doesn't really require people being on that much earlier. And there's a lot of people like,
do those
here
three
that I can't
15
remember
minutes.
them being in one clear or one full clear to get those DM buffs that are probably advocating that they want them. So it's like, if people are on there clearing for them, they can get them. It's just like, it's hard for us to say, unless, again, I can say we change our raid times. It'd have to be at least an hour earlier and state that this is we need to be on, and we need to have everyone clearing them to make it efficient, which is what we'd end up doing on nights when it's necessary. I don't know.
If it's the reason that's the reason, then I'll accept that. But don't make it the reason because it's not necessary in terms of like we don't need the extra damage, because then we could absolutely say the same about consumables. It's just not necessary. He's a joke. So we can't just mandatory
it's not just
one
MC
just
too, though. I'm
because.
talking about for blocking layer. I'm talking for AQ as well. Like, unless we find like AQ is something that we actually, we do want the world buffs for, if it's something like, but then keep in mind though, world buffs are probably going to get used a lot later on, just for once we have a lot of content, when we're trying to get a lot of things done in one night. And we have things like Molten Core and Blackening Layer on a very easy farm, and the fact that people probably aren't going to die.
I mean, we want to save our Oni buffs.
Well, yeah.
For the people who can, like healers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But who does truly benefit from just world buffs? Yeah, and other things.
Everyone
Tanks.
benefits.
Tanks get a really big benefit from having them. Melee, DPS get a nice attack power. They get the extra stam. Songflower,
Casters
the
get
crit,
18% crit.
They can't deny the buffs are useful to pretty well everybody. I think healers are probably the least benefited, but they still get some benefit. Like I'm still going to be doing them because I know people are going to want to be getting the buffs. I'm not trying to tell people they can't get them or can't want to have them. I'm just not going to make it so it's mandatory. I'm just not going to make it so that every player must have it, and if you don't have it, that you're going to be prioed by somebody else that does have it. But most likely, it's probably not going to come down to it that way. Like, you're
just leave it like up to your discretion, Michael. Like, if you decide, you know, we're needing to do MC faster or whatever, and you want to start having us do it, then you can change it. And
were there any other items we needed to talk about?
That's just if everyone can make those times. It's just I'm thinking more of the West Coast players. Like, I know Dwarfs is West Coast, and so he's not the only person. Like, he's obviously can make them, but can people make it for essentially 6 p.m.
Might not be able to make it
consistently to get their buffs, or as long as they're by 6:30. But like I had to do every clear of it. Like, there wasn't I think there was maybe 1 or 2 times in like 3 or 4 straight servers that I wasn't the one helping with other people as well to do the DM clears. It's a big investment. It's a big time sink before the raid even starts. So it really needs to be included. So if it's going to be something that would be mandatory, if the guild was like, no, we want world buffs, blah, 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 it would be something that we'd have to agree that the raid times would have to be pushed back and people would have to put the effort in to all be helping get the buffs. And because I know that's not probably going to be the vote, it'd be easier just to go with it's not mandatory. And yeah, I agree that using the term that it's not necessary is probably not the right way, but I would not make it mandatory. And I would like if the class leader of the class, if there's a competition going on between the class, between 2 DPS or 2 healers or something, and they think that their world buffs is skewing their data and they can't figure it out themselves, just tell them to drop the buffs and do a night without the buffs so you can get a clear depiction of what's happening and make your decision. But I think the rogues are going to be fine.
I don't think. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, no. Okay, you made a good point. Like, especially the healers, it's honestly doesn't fucking matter. I think that if anyone who's a top DPS in their class, I can't see them like just not getting it. But I mean, that's on them, I guess.
They're probably gonna be doing it anyways. You probably are. It'll be the way it was on all of the servers. We never made it mandatory, but like you said, 92% or 90% of the people were doing it, so it'll be the same way. I'm still going to be doing the clears. I know you did, but I did come off strong with what I'm saying. I'm just trying to say, like, I'm just not going to be like, you must do it, but it's probably still going to happen. But I would drastically ask that if people do get the world buffs and they die, and that they just realize that it sucks, but not to let it ruin the night, and not to make it about themselves, because that is 90% of the reason I don't like the world buffs is just the attitude it brings with the world buffs.
I hate world buffs. I wish they weren't a thing.
I honestly do too. I loved Classic before I knew about I still love Classic, but
you can't deny, like, when you're just smashing it hard, it is a lot of fun too.
She
like when you're just
she definitely enjoys that as well.
Well,
can we go back to the head for a second?
Yeah, she enjoys it as well.
What?
I imagine so. There's no guarantee that we're going to be dropping an Oni head every week because of that debuff that goes on 4 hours, 6 hours, whatever it is. Hell, some other guild might be dropping it 2 hours before us every fucking week when we're raiding, right? Therefore, we might not get the buff at all.
But at the same time,
are we going to be holding on to the Neff and Oni head?
I don't think so.
Can we drop it each week?
I think we're going to have to drop it still.
Have to drop it just because of items, anyways.
Yeah, exactly. The people like the healers people can hold theirs and stuff, and we'll be able to hold the alts. We'll have it because again, alts are going to be a big deal. We will be able to hold pieces and stuff like that. But no, I'm not going to tell a DPS that they can't get their best in slot ring because of a buff. Or
so it still means like you should hold it until potentially dropping it, and then if you know the buff's already out,
yeah,
then
hold till raid time.
We'll say, all right, you can just turn it in.
But yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah,
if we're raiding on a West Coast server, like not only like West Coast time server, there's a chance that we might be dropping the earliest Oni head because we'll be doing it at 7 p.m. raid time, which is early.
Yeah,
I'm gonna live in a pipe dream and hope that like the rating community can like come together and agree upon like every day it's dropped at this time. Don't be a fucking dickhead. But I mean, it's probably too much to ask. But
I think the rating community could probably get on that, but there's going to be that idiot that is just did a pug and has it and just goes and hands it in because he wants his gear. You know, and doesn't think anything of it. And that's the beauty of
one
classic.
can dream.
I think if with a good DPS site, they can implement like a pretty good like filter on oral buffs and make it like scale to so you still know like everyone's DPS and things.
It wouldn't surprise me honestly if, like, I mean, you know how hardcore the WoW community is. Like, they'll fucking track everything. It wouldn't surprise me if there's a website that tracked like Oni buffs on all of like the realms and just, excuse me, and just said like, okay, this is when the next Oni buff is available.
Make an app for $1.
There probably will be somebody that does stuff like that, or you'll have a buff tracker, just an add-on that just tracks when the last head was dropped on the server. I'm sure they'll do that, but I know World of Logs will help a lot when it comes to looking at people's numbers and discrepancies, and also just straight up simming. Like you'll be able to just look at somebody's gear and your gear, sim it, and kind of figure out the numbers you should be doing, and then basically if you're not doing those kind of numbers roughly, I know it's a patchwork sim, but fight to fight, I don't think a really skilled player is going to have to worry about being beaten by an unskilled player with world buffs, just because a lot of fights is more about proper positioning and proper rotation than just straight out raw numbers. And then the fights that is just raw numbers, then you'll just be like, okay, well, yeah, you beat me on a turret fight, you have world buffs.
Gar.
But I beat you on every single fight that required a proper stack or proper movement or proper anything, and that's where real skill really comes in. And anybody that has their worth of solid or whatever in being a leader, you should be able to differentiate somebody that's doing well as a good player overall than just somebody that's like, same with a healer that snipes heals all day long and be like, look at how top healing I am because I sniped every fucking druid's fucking hot there was. Like, that doesn't make you a good healer. It makes you a bad healer. And the healer, yeah, like gets screwed for it. No, not really. He's
healing is like one of the hardest classes to like measure.
It truly is. But a good healer will
So
stand
hard.
out. And not just because of his raw numbers. But yeah, for sure.
All right, let's
Anyways,
let's finish
this up. It's
this.
getting a little
I
late.
filtered it by only the last couple items we got.
Perfect.
We have salamander scale pants. Originally we were saying Pally because
You're not on
Druid
that
and
one anymore?
Priests. What?
It's not showing the pants for me. I think you
Scroll up.
It should show legs, shoulders, waist, wrists as well.
It's row 6. Just need to scroll up. But I think we talked about it a little bit. Priests who go for like their full tier 2, it doesn't make sense. Druids who aren't potting, like, might go for chromatic legs. Or druids who hot don't really need the crit, right? From chromatic legs. So it doesn't really make sense. Yeah, chromag. Alright. Powered legs. Yeah. But then at the same time, like, I guess the issue comes, the Pallies in AQ40 get legs that are better than empowered legs. And so it's like, how do you decide you should get what, when? Although priests don't even get like they can't wear leather, obviously, so I don't know why we're even including.
No, it's whoever was typing at the moment.
But I don't know. As a druid, those salamander scale pants are still pretty great. But the Druid tier 2 legs are pretty close to these, and I think that's where we're getting at with that, because the Pally tier 2 legs are not really good.
Yeah, they're trash.
Whereas,
Show Cenarian legs on here? Sorry, were you talking tier 2 or tier 1?
2.
Well, how long till DM?
Well, we don't know for sure, but that's phase 2.
Right, and the DM legs are comparable for about the same too. I don't know. Really depends. But like if you're a druid and we kill Reg, like, and you get tier 2 legs, like you would not use a cell in your skill.
I don't see a big deal about it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's whatever on Empowered and Salamander.
Well, the idea
will
with
be with us shortly.
The idea with not letting paladins take empowered is the legs from AQ only paladins use.
And they're fucking good.
They're not better than the empowered leggings, they're pretty much like a side grade. A little bit less healing, same amount of crit, more int, no spirit.
Yeah, like kind of the order of upgrade would be like Pallies have Salamander scale pants until they get the AQ 40 pants sort of thing, and then priests and druids both have their tier 2 pants, and they upgrade to the empowered leggings. But then if you're a druid that only is hotting, obviously, although I guess we'd only have like maybe 2 druids that only hot. Druids, like the other 2 will probably just healing touch. Still leave them as a question mark for now, though. Wild growth spotters have Druid and Pally.
Yeah.
So it's still not really a good healing alternative for either. I think Druid's tier 2 shoulders are just like 30 something, so it's even that isn't that good
it's
compared.
Not even close. Yeah.
I think they both keep those till tier 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's on to Mantle Blackwing Cabal. I think you were saying rank 10, which is kind of a high rank to even be considering this list. Yeah,
not really. Rank 10's
is it
the
doable
hardest
like without
easy
really
rank to get.
And it's far out, but you have the AQ Silithus event gives you the shoulders with hit, which are pretty good.
Yeah, that's what I used on my Warlock.
There's also AQ shoulders from tokens too later on.
Right. But I know Shadow Priest, like,
get...
they wouldn't replace this, I don't think. But yeah, it's still kind of good for everyone. Although I guess what is mages and warlocks tier 2 shoulders look like?
Less spell damage, both.
So I don't know. I personally would just put it open to any caster.
It's marked non-rankers because, like I said, ranking people really don't need to take them because you'd want to use your blue set shoulders with a 2-piece some other slot.
Okay, like that. Igniting cord is a big question because I think mainly the Warlock tier 2 build is basically almost equivalent to igniting cord. And Mage's tier 2 belt is not really good.
That Warlocks also have a Shadow Belt with more damage option and the Hit Belt. Both classes could get the Fire Maw belt. It is usually Shadow Priest Prio, but it's better than...
There's also only going to be one Shadow Priest.
Yeah.
So there's only one.
And I don't know if I was playing a Warlock, I don't know if I would even upgrade the BRD hit belt to an igniting cord. Or if I would want to, because I might really want that hit.
You'd want to when you got other hit later.
Right.
To get more spell power.
But then by the time later comes, I have my tier 2 Warlock belt. So it's like,
yeah.
You know. But then if there's a huge gap between MC and BWL, then it's like... And igniting, that's another multi-boss, or is that only Magnetar?
Multi-boss, I think. But also in
by Baron, Magmadar, Gar, and Golomag.
Okay.
Still in MC, there is that Shadow Belt that obviously...
Yeah, it's like 33. Yeah, I mean, we can...
Which if Mana Igniting Cord's an upgrade over the Hit Belt, that Shadow Belt would be too.
Right. Alright, well... I think it's a pretty good compromise. And maybe also, like, doesn't have to be all mages. Could be like first 3 mages or something. Well,
Once I got it, I'm okay.
And then the Risk Guards of True Flight. I think this is another one of those pieces that me and Mike really loved. Pretty much didn't take off. Got it. It's tanks.
Isn't it the same as DPS Warriors, though? I don't think they switched it out, do they? I think DPS Warriors keep it, or at least they keep it for a pretty damn long time. And that's I really like. We'll take the pieces and stuff when they come, but I really don't think we need to prio the tanks on too many of those pieces unless we start seeing that we need to start going to builds again of going more of a DPS type build.
This one, I know they use the bracers from Ubers that have 1 crit hit. The DPS warriors use that, or there's like a strat live crit strength bracer.
Yeah,
used to.
But they will take the Risk Guards of True Flight, though. I know they will want them. We could probably we could work it out, and I think Hunters want those as well. I think they're their best in slot.
I just know, like, for our
Yeah, but
like
don't all
tank
hunters
pieces.
kind of want their 8 pieces as well? Both the 8 pieces are good.
Yeah. Unless a hunter decides to not go tier.
Later on for the Agi set, it's probably good. I'd have to look at Agi on bracers.
But this was one, since a lot of our bracer options are kind of bad, like they just have stamina.
Yeah.
This was one that was really nice for
it's
us.
an amazing piece. It's just if our DPS needed more, I'm content with the DPS getting it first. But we can work that out with them. They might be okay with us taking a couple, and they take a couple kind of thing.
Yeah, I kind of doubt.
It might not be dropping until DM as well. And then
Honestly,
we can get
it
tank
looks
type bracers
equivalent
then.
to the bracers from Ubers, anyways, right? Like 19 Agile's practically one crit in the
Right.
hit, so
But
all you're
yeah, with the
getting is
19
a much
Agi
stand.
stacks with
So
the
you're just
Kings.
getting.
Oh yeah, with Kings. Well, like I said, it'll put you pretty much right at par with it.
Right.
Okay, we'll leave that too. I think we've covered everything.
Yeah, and we will do another meeting for like the AQ NAC stuff and take more things into consideration. But we want to make sure this stuff was hammered out before the release 100%, and then we'll have another discussion about the rest of the stuff. And then so now that we have that part done, we can start setting up the list of people what they like. So probably most likely next meeting or maybe the one after that, we'll have our, pick out your top favorite pieces, blah 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 list. Also, if any player right now wants to apply or feels like they would like to talk about a potential class leader position or something like that to represent your class, by all means, please either message one of us or you can actually apply right on the website if you'd like and just apply for the class leader position. Anybody that does apply for a class leader will be anonymous, of course. We'll be making decisions sort of soon. I did want to leave it open until we met all the new players and stuff and everything, but what I'm thinking we might end up doing is picking tentative class leaders to have it all in place, and then if down the road the class themselves decide that they think that somebody else is better to represent them, that at that time we can talk about that. But I think having some sort of leadership in each role early on will be beneficial, or at least have somebody that wants to take it on.
There was
for the time being.
There was one other real quick thing. The mission there. You're
right, yeah.
You're thinking because Warlocks and Mages tier 2.5 is pretty equivalent to it. That this might be another good Paladin candidate. In the past, we prioritized Pallies, and it really depends on the Pally because there might be only one or two Pallies that he wants to go that route. And at that point, they maybe get them first, or they might not even care and might just go to Warlocks and Mages anyhow. But that would be like one of the things, like if you have it, then it doesn't make sense for you to get your 2.5 helm, or vice versa.
The Mage and Warlock tier 2 helms also a guaranteed drop every week.
Is that the guaranteed drop?
The 2.5.
Yeah, Twin Imps always drops 2.5, yeah. Always drops one of each token, and there's 2 tokens in AQ.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay, so gives that at least a guarantee.
Yeah, we actually had our Mages and Locks when we were doing Q had that super early too. Like 1 month in, they were all done or whatever.
Nice. Yeah, I always think pieces like when there's something like that, when the mages and the warlocks can upgrade and the paladins are going to want to use this piece, it makes just the sense to go that route.
Yes, the paladins' other options are 2 world bosses, Oro, which is deep late in AQ, and tier 3.
So if you're a paladin that spams Flash of Light like 100% of the time, and there are paladins that only spam Flash of Light, it's better if you do healing, add healing only. But if you do Holy Light, which is the big heal, then crit is better. I mean, myself, I mix them up, but I do use a lot of Holy Light and for tank healing. instead of just the small heals, and that's the difference. I think that, you know, if you want to do big heals, the crit's good. If not, then it's not as good.
I would think all the paladins should build for not just spamming the smallest heal.
They do though, and I'll be honest, I did until, you know, until I got in trouble, rightfully so, for not fucking healing the tank enough, like healing, you know, big chunks heals, which I have learned to do. And
but
that's
also, like, we don't want you to line up so you never have to use a mana pot. Like, you still want to be able to use mana pots and be doing the best healing you can do. Versus, like, if you're just stacking crit and then you're like, hey, I can never go like, that's good, but then you're not using a mana pot, so you're kind of like not using your potential. That doesn't make sense either.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, I think what I will end up doing is probably mixing the best I can, because you're right that you don't want to have low heals, you know, just so you don't have to use the mana pot. You know, you want to stack your healing.
Mm-hmm. Especially when I start dual wheel tanking and stuff. You know, I'm gonna have to
I was actually gonna mention that. I have a video. Is that for real? Right.
It's private server for real. Like, sure, it's probably viable, but like, it kind of comes down to the necessary thing. Like, is it necessary to make it so that the healers have to bomb that way? And like if you look at the comps and all those groups, it's not the comps we're gonna be running. It's like 16 warriors and 5 rogues, like, or 10 rogues, and it's like a couple other classes. But it's like when there doesn't matter which tank gets threatened, there's no one really holding it the whole time, and everyone's just dancing around with it. Then it's like, fuck whatever. But like,
it's also not when they're doing progression. It's when they're doing like, hey, we've already can smash this content.
Yeah. So like, sure, I might do it for fun one time, but it's also I have to respect to do it. So it's like I probably wouldn't do that anyways. But if we deem it being necessary, like, for sure we can rock something like that. But can't see it being needed. I've been able to allow people to go all out at certain times without doing anything cheesy. I don't think it's going to be a problem. If anything, I think our threat's actually going to be better in Classic than it was on private servers.
I think Rage Gen be closer to Nost. This can be really good.
So, not as concerned about doing weird shit like that.
Okay.
Seems weird. Yeah.
Anything else from anyone else for break? We are planning on July 31st doing this again, and then we will be doing a couple more weeklies.
None of the next few meetings are going to be even close to this long. This was just the one meeting we really needed to do, and I'm glad we got all the pieces that we needed to talk about done. But the next meetings will be shorter, but we do need more attendance. Like, not the people that are here right now, but the people that we have on our list that we haven't seen. That's why Pro made that comment. We really do need to start seeing the faces we haven't seen to make sure that they are still committed and whatnot. Obviously, the people that are here all the time, pretty much everyone that's in the channel right now. You know, if next week or one of these weeks you can't make it, that's not, the message in Discord is not to you. The message in Discord is for the people that aren't making the meetings, and they have to remember that this is our raid night. So if you can't make this during this time, how can you make our raids? So, like, there's really no reason people say they can't make this. Obviously, right now, without Classic, people are making commitments on these nights, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But we need to start seeing some of the faces we haven't seen. So they're going to be shorter meetings, but it's going to be more about getting everyone together, finalizing stuff, and then, yeah, I really would like to start finalizing class leader positions and start integrating them into some of our officer meetings and stuff. Obviously, some of the people might be people that have never been in any of that kind of stuff before, so they can just kind of chat with us. And yeah, so if anyone's interested in that, by all means, please either apply or message one of us, let us know.
Much love, appreciate it.
Yeah.
I do have a question. Is the Google Docs has all the drops, like who it's going to. Is this gonna be available, or should I just like save it or something?
Oh yeah, of course it's going to be always all available, and we will have all the sheets for people who've gotten past loot and everything like that will be available, and most likely the list of people's wanted pieces will be available as well, and that could be taken in a negative way, but I can't really see it without DKP being in a way for people to exploit that in a negative sense. They can't be like, oh, I want that piece because I know this guy wants it, because it might not work out that way anyways.
I think it'll be available, but it won't be like, I think it'll be, we all do it at the same time, so you're not like, I know that you want this first, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So we all just give our
the means for
best.
Everybody does need to leave for this raid time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the next meeting next week will be light.
Not next week. Just 2 weeks.
Yeah,
31st.
sorry, 2 weeks. But the next week we have our meeting will be a lighter one, and but yeah, it's going to be basically four more meetings essentially. 3.
And then release.
And then release. We're also going to be doing a name saving thing. We'll all be in TeamSpeak for that, and make sure people are following Discord. The people make sure that everyone knows that what server we're picking and all that kind of stuff. So please make sure that if you do have a sub and you're going to be in TeamSpeak or be on Discord, just make sure you're not.
I'll try to
unaware.
get everyone's emails so then I could send out stuff like that specifically. Like, hey, we're all like, this is the server, this is the whatever. Because we might not necessarily want to. We want to tell everyone, but we don't want to tell the world where we're going to be. In case fan picks our server. Because we're playing. Yeah.
No, that'll be the main thing. That'll be what we're kind of following, making sure if anything we get any leaks on which private server people are going where, or what streamers are going where. We can adjust. But from the sounds of things, apparently all of the streamers are not saying their server, which I don't get.
People are gonna find out anyway.
Well, that's what I mean. I don't get how they think that's gonna.
They might announce it after they
get to 60.
Throw their names out or get their names saved.
Well, yeah, if that's all it is, just their name thing. As long as they're not trying, but it sounded like S-Fan was trying to say he doesn't want people to know what server he's going to.
Well, he's gonna have to rely on 4 or 5 other streamers not to tell them what server they're going to go to, either, because he's gonna play on the same server as 5 other streamers.
It'll get out somehow.
And some of those streamers have big fucking mouths, so.
Well, also they're that guy. He's already recruiting and stuff for the guild, so all those people have to keep their mouths shut too.
Yeah, I was gonna say Asmongold's definitely gonna spill the beans.
Yeah, and he's one of the people that was complaining about the stream snipers too.
PvE.
If you go on an LA server, you won't be on Asmongold's server or SFan because they're in Texas, so they'll be going on Chicago. So you dodge the biggest one.
Yeah, that's good. As long as, again, it just comes down to as long as they tell us where the server's actually located, and they don't just say that this is a time zone server, because it might not be.
And actually, the Texas to Chicago versus Texas to LA isn't a big difference in ping.
Yeah, but Asmongold.
Unless did they specifically say
they play on. He plays on a Chicago server right now, on retail and etc.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Asmon's probably gonna play Chicago.
I think if you dodge him,
that's the big one.
Every other streamer is kind of
Soda's going forward anyways, and Tips Out is a loser, so it doesn't really matter. And he's going to be playing with S-Fan, and I think Asmon wants them all to play on the same server anyways. But
Asmon's fanboys are the worst.
Yeah, I think you'll have Asmon and Soda horde a line, because that's some content,
Yeah, that's what Tips and S-Fan are doing. They're going to be on the same server, but opposite. But I don't know if they still are. With everything that's going on recently, I don't know if people still like Tips Out in the group or anymore. Because they stopped doing the classic cast. I don't know if people have noticed that.
He might be watching this stream, so careful what you say.
You might be watching he might be watching your stream?
Yeah.
Yeah, Tips Out baby. My sister donated to you.
Yep, it's gonna be great. But if yeah, we'll just call it there. See you in 2 weeks, but please come around if you want. We're always around.
But yeah, keep the chat going in Discord now. It's getting hyped, getting close. But I know we've pretty much talked every conversation into the ground. But the dungeon farming thing looks like it's going to be very viable. So potentially talk about maybe finding yourself, dungeon groups, all-in groups, things like that. Make friends.
Yeah. This concludes our broadcast. Goodbye.
Yeah, everyone go. Everyone leave. Bye.